some smarties because they make mistakes.
All right, folks, we're going to call the meeting back to order tonight. Thank you. In executive session, we agreed to terms on a First Amendment to the employee agreement with our finance director, town accountant Jennifer Mintz, and the town of Harwich. So we're pleased to have had that settled and signed, and we move forward from there. And so now we move on to those that are able. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We'll jump right into comments and announcements. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board tonight?
I would.
We got one woman, one individual behind you, and then please.
Go ahead.
I actually just want to address the public more than the board or
Okay.
everyone. Bernadette Waystek, Chair of the Brooks Free Library Trustees. I just wanted to use this vehicle along with others to just let the public be aware that the board is moving our July meeting from July 1st to the second Wednesday of the month, July 8th. We will have it on BFL's social media. It's going up on the website, and there'll be old-fashioned signs on the doors of the library, but just appreciate being able to use this as another way to make sure the public and the patrons know about that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Kevin DuPont, currently Chair of the Board of Health. This isn't easy for me, so I'm just going to read it. So members of the Select Board, please accept this letter as my resignation from the Harwich Board of Health, effective immediately. This decision has not come easily. As someone who was born and raised in Harwich, serving the town has been both an honor and a responsibility that I have taken seriously since my appointment to the board in 2021. During my time on the board, I've approached the role with diligence, preparation, and a genuine desire to serve the residents of Harwich. In the 5 years that I have served, not a single formal complaint has been brought against me regarding my conduct or performance as a board member. I have consistently done the work, read the materials, participated in the discussions, and voiced my opinions when I believed it was in the best interest of the town. It is therefore difficult for me to ignore the circumstances that have led to the current effort to remove me from the board. I'm particularly troubled by the involvement of Select Board Member Don Howell in this process. While I recognize that others may disagree on whether a technical conflict of interest exists, I believe there is at minimum the appearance of a conflict that warrants consideration. Mr. Howell's wife serves on the Board of Health and nearly resigned last year following my appointment as chair. The fact that this effort to remove me emerges during the same week that I was once again unanimously elected chair by my fellow Board of Health members only adds to my concern regarding the fairness and impartiality of this process. Equally troubling is the fact that I was provided with an appointment time for tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, before the Select Board had even conducted its vote on whether or not to pursue my removal. From my perspective, this conveys an impression that the outcome had already been determined before the formal process had even occurred. Despite these concerns, I've decided not to engage in what would likely become a lengthy and contentious battle over my position. While I strongly believe I am being treated unfairly, the reality is Board of Health currently ranks behind several other significant priorities in my life. My family, my professional responsibilities, and the completion of my nursing degree must come first. Between preparing to finish school, supporting my family, addressing personal obligations, and managing increasing demands at work, I simply don't have the time or the energy required to fight this issue in the manner it would deserve. That does not mean that I agree. Quite the opposite. What saddens me most is the message this situation sends to those who may consider volunteering for public service in the future. Small town government depends on residents who are willing to step forward, dedicate their time, study the issues, and offer independent viewpoints. When individuals who genuinely care about their community feel pushed aside for expressing opinions or asking difficult questions, it discourages others from becoming involved. I fear that atmosphere ultimately harms the town more than any disagreement ever could. I remain proud of the work I've done on behalf of the residents of Harwich and grateful for the opportunity to have served. I will continue to care deeply about this community and wish the Board of Health and the town success moving forward. Respectfully, Kevin DuPont.
Thank you very much, Mr. DuPont.
Okay. Sharon Flieger, on the Board of Health and a resident of Harwich. I am really very sorry to see Kevin leave. He is a very valuable person on that board. However, based on some of these issues, I'm also resigning from the Board of Health, effective immediately. I will deliver my copy of this letter to Emily tomorrow. As he said, this decision did not come easily. I have served on town boards over 10 years, the past 7 years on the Board of Health, 4 as chair. I felt that my background as a microbiologist, infection control, and in clinical research would allow me to contribute to the issues that come before the Board of Health. I have taken that responsibility very seriously and have devoted many hours in reading the information for our meeting and researching information regarding some of the issues that are coming before the board. Having seen the posted select board agenda for tonight and the interview committee agenda scheduled for tomorrow, it's apparent that the Board of Health vote for Kevin DuPont as chair is being questioned in some manner. I don't know what. This action of unknown motivation seems to be the case, to me, of overreach, meddling, and manipulation by someone on the select board in an attempt to control the composition of the Board of Health. While the select board has the power of appointment, these powers must be exercised in a fair and transparent manner. I want to emphasize transparent. Interference with the activities of the Board of Health has caused me to reconsider my desire to be on the Board of Health. While I was chair of the board, Don Howe called me one day and asked me not to tell his wife that he was calling me. And he wanted to discuss, this is ad lib now, this is only part of what is in the letter, to discuss an item that was coming before our board regarding fertilizer regulations. The town council had informed us that we could not use the term regulations because due to the decisions made by the comprehensive wastewater management plan when it was accepted years ago. Council wanted us to use the term policy. Don asked me not to rescind the term regulations. Legal counsel was present at the board of meeting that night, and our board voted to change it to fertilizer policy, which we really, by legal request, had no other choice to make. This is not the only time Don has attempted to influence items on our agenda. This would appear to be a direct conflict of interest on Don Howe's part, as his wife is a member of our board. As a result, I do not feel that I can continue as a member of the Board of Health with Mr. Howe continuing interference with a regulatory board. And I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flugler.
Good evening, Michael McCaskill. I'm not resigning from anything tonight. However, I am here to address comments that were made about me at the last 2 meetings by Mark Kelleher and Selectman Don Howell. Mark, you started your rant with "you wished I was here." I don't think you do. Well out of your league on this one, Mark. To call me out after the first time you appointed me, well after I called you a bobblehead. You appointed me with no conversation. I sat this weekend and tried to figure out what led to the change on the new reappointment recommended by the town administrator. And the only plausible thing I could come up with is Don finally told you what to say. And Don stood up any chance he'd get with me onto his soapbox and pounded his chest and said things. And then another topic, refused to bring out the gentleman's name that he pulled off the reappointment list. So only because it was me did you say what you said. And I think the walls are closing in. you're getting yourself in the middle of things that you shouldn't get yourself into. And when this topic hopefully comes back, when the chair puts it on the agenda, then I'll speak about the many times I had to get involved in the Board of Health because I was getting complaints, because you were pressuring board members, because your wife was unhappy. So that is a reality to what has happened now to Mr. DuPont. I would also ask that the board consider a topic and an agenda topic to go over what the policy actually is. Because as somebody that watches the meetings, I never saw any debate from this board to send anybody to the interview committee. Nobody. Committee handbook puts that decision on this board, not somebody individually and somebody whose wife serves on that same board. This is a terrible look for the town of Harwich. We don't have to worry about it being on Harwich Old Timers, though, because Sandra won't say anything negative about Don. The next comment that I have is based on the open meeting law complaint. Mr. Kelleher, you trying to persuade me and anybody else not to use the law when we can use the law because of cost to the town is absurd. You're not going to bully or intimidate me, but you might intimidate others by casting that. That is a public record. It's never been announced in the 12 years that I've been involved. You sounded stupid, and you sounded like you were intimidating the public. And I wonder what the Attorney General's office would rule on that one. All of it wouldn't really matter if you weren't found guilty, which made you sound even stupider. But if you're going to call out members of the public by name, why don't you practice what you preach and do it to everybody instead of just to people? And don't worry about the money, Mark. You'll save the town money in the long run, asking opposing counsel, what punishment would you like so that you won't litigate? Another comment that's ridiculous. As far as the bobblehead comment, Mark, it continues. Last week's reorganization of the board was a prime example. You were hovering in your seat when Select Board Member Howell started to talk. You put your hand in his face before he finished talking with a snap motion. A great motion, by the way, because Pete's sitting in that chair. But then Don couldn't wait to take over and organize the rest of the board himself. His lack of intelligence is telling people in the public, prior to the board being reorganized, what the board's going to be. No debate, no conversation, no rationale, no anything. And Don, I think you remember, I've done this before, when you reorganized the board when I was on it, behind the scenes. Be careful who you tell. People talk. But the town deserves better from you, and the town deserves better from you.
Any other members of the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none. Staff members, any staff members wishing to address the board?
Good evening, Kara Mawini, Director of Cultural Affairs. Wanted to just announce that this week and next week starts all the summer programming, so no shock. It is almost July, despite our weather today. So Farmers Market does kick off on Thursday, right at Sisson Road, right on the front lawn. We have about 35 vendors to kick off for opening day, which is really fabulous. We'll have a special bubble guy coming in, so you'll be seeing life-size bubbles. Come on in 3 to 6. We'll have plenty of fresh produce. We'll have oysters, scallops, lots of baked goods, so lots of great treats for everyone to come in. Followed by, on Sunday, we have our first movie night at Brooks Park, starting, I'll say, about 8 o'clock. We'll see what the light looks like. But we are showing off The Sandlot, so we're kicking off a classic. We're hoping all the students will come out. We'll have a lot of fun. We'll have concessions for sale. It'll be a really good, fun time. It is free. It is all sponsored through our Cultural District grants. Then we have on Monday night, Jay Place and the Rockers. So we kick off summer concerts right again at Brooks Park, 6 p.m. sharp. We start music promptly. It runs about an hour and a half. Again, all free. Make sure to bring your bug spray because the mosquitoes have been a little terrible. So please come on by. We don't need anyone carried away by a mosquito. And then on Wednesday, come join me at Seaside Marketplace because we'll be opening the shacks at 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 1st. So very exciting stuff all happening and starting. And then if that's not enough, July 2nd, we'll be at the 204, and we'll be kicking off Cranfest in the courtyard, and we will have the Sky Consort with Emma, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but it's Bijorling, and it is going to be a whirlwind of polkas, groovy reels, passionate love songs, and breathtaking hymns. So if that doesn't convince you, you can come see my smiling face over at the Cultural Arts Municipal Building. We have a lot coming up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. Check out harwichculture.com, 204system.com. Follow us on Facebook. I'll be going live a lot of the time in the next week or two because it's summer, and let's have some fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other staff members here tonight to speak to the board? Seeing none, we'll move along to the town administrator's report. Jay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. A few items, and then I'll do the weekly briefing. First, update on the FY27 VNA contract, which is the Visiting Nurse Association. Wanted to let the board know that I've signed the FY27 contract with the VNA. They provide the following services to our residents: communicable disease surveillance, PT, physical therapist, home visits, education, lifestyle medicine, vaccines for homebound residents, prenatal home visits, diabetes education, to name a few. They work collectively with the health department, the COA, the town nurse, the schools, and other community partners. We've seen an increase in maternal child health services since we added prenatal home visits to our offering, and trying to really get our residents of Harwich to build a relationship with the VNA and utilize them as much as possible. So happy to have signed that contract to continue the good work with them. Wanted to give the board an update on the Cape Cod RTA. Last week I attended the Cape Cod RTA Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board meeting. We received updates on a number of items, including ridership that's increasing. It's up 7% compared to last year. Also wanted to provide an update on upcoming services regarding planned transportation that they're working on around veterans traveling to VA medical facilities in both Providence and Boston, and a new pilot service connecting Outer Cape residents to medical facilities in Hyannis that they'd pick you up at your house. Additionally, the board discussed the pending legislation to designate the Hyannis Transportation Facility as the Thomas Cahere Cape Cod Transportation Center in honor of the late administrator and longtime transportation advocate. So some good stuff coming from the Cape Cod RTA, particularly around the VA, the veterans VA trips that they're going to be doing to Boston and Providence. So I want to make sure the community is aware of the Phase 3A forum that we have coming up next week. Next Tuesday, June 30th, we'll be hosting a community engagement forum regarding Phase 3A sewer construction work. The project was approved at last year's annual town meeting and election and involves sewer construction in the Queen Anne Road area. Looking to have people from the community come to learn more about the project timeline, what to expect during construction, and how it may affect your neighborhood. The meeting will be taking place at the Community Center on Oak Street at 7 p.m. The forum will also be recorded and posted on the town website following the event. Having a message board put up on Queen Anne this coming weekend to try to get people to come to the meeting. Also hitting social media, website, email blasting as much as possible, but word of mouth will help as well. So trying to get the word out about that so we can get people to come and participate. Hopefully the message boards will catch them driving on Queen Anne. So that's next Tuesday. Lastly, just an update on board vacancies. We've discussed the Pleasant Bay Alliance and the Cape Cod Commission, so I want to remind people that the vacancies on those two boards exist. We're looking for residents who are interested in volunteering. The Pleasant Bay Alliance is seeking 2 Harwich residents to serve as Harwich's voice in regional environmental planning. We're also looking for a representative to serve on the Cape Cod Commission. This is the Barnstable County's regional planning and regulatory agency. If you're interested in either of these boards, reach out to Natasha Lyon at harwich-ma.gov, or you can call my office as soon as possible if you're interested, please.
Before you jump onto you go into the weekly
Yes,
briefing?
yeah.
Before we go to the weekly briefing, any comments or questions for Jay? If you want to get me some flyers on the 3A thing, I can have my dogs pass them out when they greet the neighbors.
Mark had that idea about bringing them to people's house and putting them in their doors. We're going to look into that as
Come
well.
on my property, my dogs will get you.
But, yeah, I'm hoping hopefully the reader boards help. I mean, I think that's the best best way to get to people that aren't on social media.
Yeah, I was gonna say, social media is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna put it on social media for sure, but,
Mr. Chair, I ordered 4,500 signs to go around the town of Harwich.
Perfect. Put 3,500 in my yard.
yeah. So, hopefully we can get a good turnout, though. The GHD will be there to do a presentation. They went through the presentation with me today. Pretty factual to the point. Diggett's looking to start in the next few weeks, so, important for people that live in that area to come so they can hear more about it.
Quick question, if Diggett's gonna start in a few weeks, does that mean Queen Anne Road will be?
No, Queen Anne Road's not, we have a bylaw that doesn't allow any work to be done on Queen Anne until mid-September, so they'll be starting in the neighborhoods north and south of Queen Anne. We're trying to coordinate the best that we possibly can to have as little impact in July and August as possible in that area. Obviously, inevitably, the project's gonna start going full bore, but really trying to get Diggett to understand that July and August are a crazy time for the town of Harwich, so we're hoping that unfortunately, we didn't write that into the specs, so we're really just trying to work with Diggett to get them to work with us. We're hoping to focus on some drainage work in July and August that will have limited impact, that needs to be done as part of the project anyway. So, trying our best on that.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll move on to the update. This is for Phase 3 wastewater update. I'd like to take a moment to update the board and the public on the Phase 3 sewer extension. The contractor, Robert B. Auer, continues to make good progress on both east and west contract areas this week. In the east zone, which is E1, crews are installing gravity sewer mains, laterals, and manholes on Pleasant Bay Road west of Route 39, Kimberly Way, and Wilma's Way. In all 4 pump stations, our work is remaining active. We're also pleased to report that paving has begun on Pleasant Bay Road, and we're trying to wrap that up by next week, June 25th. I think we gave them as a deadline to complete the work on Pleasant Bay Road. In the west zone, crews have moved into reclamation and repaving on Charlene Way, Mary Willette Court, Standish Woods Circle, Jasper Moore Trail, Lydia Bangs Way, and Martha Eaton Court, which I know residents in those neighborhoods will be glad to see. Work on the Chestnut Lane pump station continues as well. They had lots of planting going on out there last week. I had the chance to take a tour with the neighbors. Traffic control officers are in place at all active locations, and roads remain passable at the end of each day. I'd like to ask residents to take a little extra time to travel in these construction areas and visit the town's website for this update and future updates as well.
Excellent. Any questions?
Yeah, I wanna thank Jay for giving an update on the contract price. You got it from GHD, no
Yep.
change orders that are really affecting the total overall price. One thing caught my eye, and correct me if I'm wrong, did that report say Robert Auer is looking to finish up this fall?
They're finishing up this fall with, it's either, I'm gonna botch which one it is. It's either the E1 or the 2W.
Okay, but not the
Yeah,
whole.
you're correct, yeah. I'm just not sure whether it's the E1 or the 2W, but it's one of their 2 projects, components of 3. But yeah, they're under budget and ahead of schedule, so that's a good takeaway regarding 3.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Jeff? Seeing none, any board members wish to remove either of the consent agenda items this evening? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented in tonight's packet.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Old business, discuss and vote on proposed 2026 facility usage fees for rentals at the 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building.
So, Mr. Chair, following the discussion regarding the fees for rentals at the last meeting, I met with Kara, who's here this evening, to take a look at some tweaks to the rental policy or the fee schedule that was presented previously. What we changed in the fee schedule was the gap between the half-day and the full-day rate. That was the biggest takeaway I took from the board that evening. So what we did was create a gap that was a little bit more substantial between half-day and full-day. We left the half-day as is and added to the full-day cost, so it was a little more reflective of the cost of the service. So that's really the only change we made. We left the fee structure in place to be able to provide a break in costs for nonprofits. The only change from what you've seen before is the difference between the half-day and the full day. Anything to add, Kara, other than that?
No, other than I'd like to more so put a timeline on it so that we reassess again 6 months from now or to a year from now, based on market and how things are growing and evolving.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Questions and/or a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the proposed 2026 facility usage fees for rentals at the 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building with the addition of a reassessment in 12 months.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. I'll make my comments now. No shock, again, you're sitting, thankfully. I just still think some of them are a little too light. And the other thing that stood out to me tonight, which I guess I either didn't pick up on last time, or the numbers are slightly different, but the Harwich-based schools per hour for the auditorium, this isn't my example, is $150, and a for-profit per hour for the same facility is $100 per hour. So I just think that's odd, that a for-profit would pay more, less for the use of that auditorium than the school system. The other rooms within the building seem to be more appropriate as far as the schools pay a little less than the other entities. So again, perhaps just something I didn't pick up on last time. That one doesn't sit right. And the others, again, I don't think we're far off, and the reality is, I don't know what groups are willing to pay. I just think it's a little light in comparison to what goes into it, and let alone staff's time, than the actual use of the facility itself. So, my comments.
Yeah, that for profit per hour, is that a typo?
It very well could be. So
Yeah.
the 100 an hour right now is our current hourly rate. So, I mean, I would safely even bump that to 200 an hour, and I'm
Yeah,
happy
maybe
to
if you
sit it
could
at that
amend
for
the
right now.
motion to include the 200 per hour for the for-profit per hour for the auditorium,
I think all the way down the board.
all the way down the board, yeah.
Was there a second?
There was a second.
So you want to remove your second?
I'll remove my second.
Not to tell you what to do.
No,
I'm
that's
just
fine.
asking if you would
You can
like to.
guide me in that direction.
So, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair? Is it my turn? Mark, did you want to go? I don't want to saw you off here.
I was just gonna say one thing with the fine work
Yes, he
Jen,
wants to go.
Jen has done on the revolving fund. I think next year we'll have a good comparison to see what we're trying to attain versus these rates. So I'm glad you put in there, we're gonna have an annual review. So, that's it, Mr. Chair.
Just a hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Carl, thank you for putting this back together. The only thing that caught my eye was exactly what the chair had brought up. So through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Cara if you'd be comfortable, as you're the department head, if I made a motion that was through the entire for-profit per hour of $200, and I would feel comfortable reducing the Harwich-based school to $100 per hour. Now, I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but I'm asking you as the department head, does that create any angst as you sit there?
No.
I know two people to my left is probably angsting, is twitching. So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion if you don't mind.
Please.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the proposed 2026 facility usage fees for rentals at the 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building as presented in the packet, with a reassessment after 12 months with the following changes. The for-profit per hour usage fee would be a flat $200 fee through the entire grid. And the Harwich-based school per hour for the auditorium usage would be a $100 charge per hour.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on that? Mr. Howell?
If I'm to take the motion at face value, the for-profit across the board, that actually changes the half-day for-profit, and it changes the for-profit per hour in a different way. I mean, we're starting to actually engineer this thing. I'm not sure that it wouldn't be a better idea to have Kara come back with a revised table. I mean, Jeff, did you mean $100, I mean, $200 for everything? For-profit? Because there's pockets that are different than that.
Let me take a look, Mr. Howell. Thank you for bringing that up. Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Please.
Remember how you pointed out a for-profit, what other part of the grid are you looking at to compare my, I believe, $200? You had mentioned we'd have to change,
Yeah, they're different rates. Library's 500, cafeteria's 400, gym's 300, front lawn's 175, rear lawn's.
I see, I see.
Mr. Chair? So, yeah, the issue would be like the courtyard and the front lawn, where half-day for-profit would be 175. If you did it by the hour, it would be 200, so it would be cheaper to do it for the half-day than for an hour.
Okay,
you know?
let me make that motion again if I could.
Yeah.
Should I take back my second?
Could I, Mr. Chair,
Please.
before you make that motion?
I would love you to
Can I
help.
make a recommendation?
Throw me a lifeline here.
Can we add this in and just, excuse me, but blow it up in an aspect, get rid of the half-day? Let's just focus on our for-profit per hour rate, our nonprofit per hour rate, our Harwich-based schools, and the dance theater rehearsal, I think, are the most imperative columns that we need to focus on. So if we were to focus on this, Harwich-based schools per hour, $100 for the auditorium. The other rates, as proposed in the chart, would remain the way they are listed. For-profit, not for-profit, per hour would remain as listed, and then for-profit per hour would be $200 across the board all the way down. Dance theater and rehearsals would be as proposed, and then there's the outlier of the art exhibits, which is listed as our library as proposed. So removing the complicating factors of the half-day and full days, which is where we're getting stuck in the mud, I would like to propose that we just downgrade this to our per-hour current pricing chart model that we have at $100 an hour. We upgrade that to $200 an hour, but we need to make sure that we're advocating for our nonprofits, which is why I would like to make sure we add in our nonprofit per hour rate, as well as our Harwich-based schools per hour.
Thank you,
So,
sorry.
so with that said, are you coming back with half-day and full-day rates later?
I think that would be essential, and I think the biggest piece of that is we've seen progressive growth, and I can see the progressive growth ahead of me, because we book so far in advance that I already know 6 months from now what we're looking at. I think the need is there, and Jen will certainly be dictating some of this detail this evening, which will outline kind of why we have this essential need moving forward. But even 6 months from now, I can come back and add in those additional rates. But I think to simplify things for where we need to move forward now and act upon, it'd be best to focus on those categories.
Okay, which is fine, but just to clarify, so then the half-day and the full-day rates will no longer exist?
Correct.
Okay.
We would go just to our same hourly model that we have currently.
Perfect, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Howell.
I still feel it'd be less confusing if we had a whole new chart in front of us so that the public could see exactly what we're voting on, because it's.
That's fine, we can just do it. We
Stuff
can just
coming
do
out.
that.
I would agree with that, because
Yeah.
I have zero chance of repeating what she just said.
And
in
honestly,
a
one
motion.
of the things that we were trying to resolve too was like, the conversation Kara and I had, like, if you want to rent a baseball field because we only have the hourly, you're in a situation where it would cost you have to pay hourly all week because we don't have a daily fee. So I think we're close. I think the only hiccup we had was the for-profit hourly, so.
Excellent.
Do we feel that this will be something we can get on next week's agenda?
Yeah, right, Kara? We can just tweak this tomorrow?
Just tell me when you need
Yeah,
me here.
Yeah, we'll do it next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that exercise, folks.
Sorry, Kara.
It's always good here.
We were close.
I'm here for the home stretch. We're all right.
Bringing back the discussion of potentially dissolving boards and committees, which is the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee. Open it up for discussion. Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I know it's not been meeting. I did talk with Carla about wanting to have a chance, but in going back through the history, we've gotten back already to 1991, but it indicated that that itself was a revision to something else, and we're still, Emily and I have been working on trying to source where the committee came from, because it looks like it might have been a town meeting action, and then the name got changed in 1991 by the select board, and then later on, last year, I believe it was. It got changed again, but, so we're not even looking at the origin of the committee yet. So if we want to dissolve it, we can dissolve it, but I'm not entirely certain that we have the authority if it was initially agreed to at a town meeting vote.
And I understand your comment, but based on those comments, I would say we actually probably have more of a right to dissolve it at this point. And then if we determine that there was a town meeting action and the entity was something other than this, then perhaps that's the one that moves forward. But it's up to the board. Further discussion? Mark?
The only thing I would say is, when you're dealing with accessibility rights, you're dealing with disabilities and the laws there, until we get some real clarity, I'd prefer not to dissolve that. I think we have enough committees that are understaffed that over time, we can take a look at combining some of those. I made a comment last week that Waterways is having a very difficult time getting a quorum. I asked the members if you were to combine, maybe with the Conservation Committee. But I think that's where our priority should be on some of the existing committees that can't get enough members. Again, I think when you're dealing with disability rights, you're running into a minefield till we are sure what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Doucette?
I don't have anything to add.
Mr. Handler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I sit on the fence because they haven't met. I'd be very happy to, do we know who the new liaison is for the HARC if we?
No,
No, okay.
there was not one assigned.
There was not one assigned. All right, so that aside, they haven't met. We need to make a decision. I'd be in favor of, if we want to straddle this, I'd be in favor of giving them 1 month to get it together and meet and begin having active participation within the town. If they can't pull it together in a month, then I say we disband them. That would be the compromise I would make. However, if a motion was put on the table right now, I would vote to disband because they have not done really much of anything in almost a year.
Okay. 1 second, Mr. McCaskill. Do you, this exercise you're going through with Emily, do you think in a month's time you can have it ironed out? And
I think so, but I was just going to say, I'd feel more comfortable. Jeff, you want to carry the water buckets here? Maybe you can contact them and see what, because there wasn't any liaison.
I was a liaison
Okay.
to them. I reached out and spoke with Lynn in October several times by email, and November, and said that I'd be happy to help give them CPR and bring them back to life. And they couldn't, the 3 or 4 of them couldn't get it together to meet. And I just said, at that point, let me know when you're gonna have your first meeting, and I'll be there.
Could you touch base, though, with Carla during that
I
month?
spoke with Carla last week.
I did, too, and she
Yeah.
said that you told her that we were definitely disbanding it, or at least that was her understanding.
No, I said we would have a discussion. It's not for me to decide if we disband or not.
But that's what she said. I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
she had some thoughts about what she would like to do going forward.
We had a great conversation, and I took all of her comments to heart. However, if they can't get it together to meet, this is all a moot conversation.
So I guess the answer is, yeah, I'll have clarity about how it started by then, sure.
okay. Mr. McCaskill?
Mr. Chair, through you to the town administrator, just for the public's knowledge, we have an accessibility rights person now that works for the town of Harwich, correct?
Yes.
So we have no problem legally with the state or anything else,
No, I
correct?
did some research following the discussion last week, and we're definitely legally in a good spot. We have no requirement to have this committee. We have a requirement to have 3 items, which is to have Jim in his role as the ADA coordinator, and then that we have a process for people that need to file concerns, and then also that we have a transition plan. We have all 3 of those.
Thank you, and through you also, we, to Select Board Member Howell, we went through this exercise, I think it was 3 years ago, and we had gotten a decision that this was not a town meeting born committee, not on any iteration of the name. We had lengthy conversation with DPW director, whom has a file of everything that needs to be done in the town of Harwich. by way of signage, by way of crosswalks, by way of everything. A great recommendation.
Transition plan.
We have, we had met with members of the committee, and Megan Eldridge, who was the Assistant Town Administrator at the time, recommended that we disband the committee. I think it was for feel-good reasons that we kept the committee going. My father, who is handicapped, was on that committee for 2 years and referred to it as the Conversation Committee. They don't have a budget. They don't have the ability really to do anything. So it's really kicking the can down the road not to just disband this. We, as a select board, which I'm sure we could find the video or the minutes, voted to give it one more chance. There really is no interest on that committee to keep the committee going. And I think to the legal question brought up by Mr. Kelleher and Select Board Member Howells wanting to get it, we went through this exercise, and all of that information is out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howell?
With all due respect to what Mr. McCaskill said, I've already gotten minutes that are before what we alleged the committee, the date the committee was created. So the last conversation didn't have the earlier set of minutes from 1991, and that itself alluded to the fact that it may very well go back to the late 70s. I'm certain that that discussion we had never talked to that. And I have no horse in this race whatsoever, but I do believe, especially talking to her, that as a representative for Vital and as a board member of the Perkins School, I think Carla has a good insight on this stuff, and she was asking for the opportunity because she also said that agreeing with what Mr. McCaskill said about our buildings, the municipally owned buildings, is one thing, but she had thought that the discussion pattern of the committee could identify things throughout the town where they could have the ability, you know, as a committee to do some job owning, to be able to get better accessibility in places throughout town, which would not be the ADA's responsibility, the coordinator.
All right. Unless there's a motion, I have a thought, and ultimately it's a kick it down the road again thought, but again, unless someone has a motion this evening, but in interest of time, we'll move it along. But does anybody have an objection if Mr. McGrail would agree to have Mr. Mulcahy reach out to the chair of the Accessibility Rights Committee and have a discussion? Would you have a problem with that, Mr. McGrail?
No, not at all.
Any
Happy
member
to
of the
do
board have an issue with that?
Could he touch base with Carla too, just to get?
Sure. Perhaps, what did you say, there's 3 members right now? You know, if you have the time, Jim, perhaps you could reach out to all 3.
Absolutely.
All right?
Mr. Chair, maybe we could bring,
If they're so inclined, sure. We'll start with Jim having a conversation. And if they want to come in, Jim, have them come on in next meeting or the first meeting in July, whatever works. And like I said, we just need to, you know, wrap it up at some point and make a final decision. So July will be the time frame that we make that decision. All right?
Mr. Chair, one more if I
Please.
could. While we're on the discussion, is the chair looking for additional committees that maybe we could have a discussion to disband?
I'd be happy to have that discussion, sure.
The Housing Committee is losing another member. That would bring them down to 2. I don't know if that's,
If you have thoughts, let's put it, you know, into the
throw an email out
admin
to you
office or
and,
whatever, yeah.
okay.
And then we can
perfect.
put it as an agenda item.
Just wanted to make sure you wanted to entertain a
Yeah,
couple.
yeah, absolutely, because again, perhaps, you know, and I'm not gonna get into why that might be a logical thought on the Housing Committee, but nonetheless, we can put it on as an agenda item, we can kick this around like we're doing right now, and then ultimately make some decisions. But again, what I'd be looking for at some point is to make the final decision. It's either we're going to disband them, or we're gonna leave them as is and try to, you know, reinvigorate them. So, more to come on that. Anybody else? We're good?
I wouldn't limit your review, because there's a number of them. At the risk of having my tires slashed, I still feel that the bikeways and trails committees have a tendency to look awful similar.
So again, if anybody has any thoughts, let's send them into admin, and then we can schedule them for appropriate discussion and make some decisions. All right, and at the same time, what we'll do, when we're gonna have them on the agenda, we can invite some other folks who are on those committees in before us to have, be part of the discussion. Good? All right. In the packet tonight was a Select Board Committee liaison assignment, speaking of which. So, I know some folks had asked for some other assignments that they did not receive, but again, I did my best. I appreciate most of you kind of wanted to stick with what you had in the past. If there's any real concerns, let me know afterwards, but otherwise, I think we'll rock and roll with that list.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Go.
Just one change that I'd like to request is, I'd like to switch the Recreation and Youth Commission to Jeff, and I'll take the Conservation Commission. And if that's okay with you.
When the check clears, then we can make that happen, yes. Thank you. It's fine with me, Mr. Chair.
I'm fine with that. Good? Anybody else? All right. Seeing now, easy for me to say, we'll move on to new business. Item A, Finance Director to present the 204 Cultural Municipal Building Revolving Fund update.
Awesome.
Presentation, please.
Can I get the presentation up there and the clicker? Please? The other one. Yep. And I'm just gonna scoot over so I can see the screen.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Here we go.
Hey.
I am. It's been a long road on this one. So, Jennifer Mintz, I am the finance director for the town of Harwich. And I am here to review the 204 Sisson Road Municipal Building Revolving Fund. And I think we all know it's been a long time coming. And I know that both this board and,
Background music.
I like that. I could rock out to that.
Wrong switch. So much for mute.
I know that this board and the finance committee have long been waiting for this, so I'm happy that we're here. First, I wanted to take just a moment to thank a few people that have really helped me make this review thorough and accurate based on a very large data set that went into a full multi-year review. First, and as always, I want to thank Jay. He is my partner in all things Harwich, and this was no exception. Second, Finance Committee member Peter Hughes, who from my first day on the job could not quickly enough get this report into my hands for my review. He was actually my first call when I finished this presentation to come to my office and preview it and give me his thoughts, and I'm very grateful for his time and partnership. I also want to thank Kara Mawini, our Cultural Affairs Director, who provided accurate building and square footage spaces, programming schedules, and answers to countless questions along the way by me. And Sean Libby, Assistant DPW Director, who honestly kept this thing moving forward in a very difficult environment with little finance support to lean on. I think all those people deserve much kudos in this process. So much of what I'll show you tonight, you likely already know. The Finance Committee documented a lot of this in their August 2024 report. I feel my job tonight is to put the facts in one place, confirm what's solid, clarify a few details that are easy to misread, and lay out a clear path forward. So, three things I want you to hold on to before we get started. First, the fund's major problem has never been its revenue. Instead, it was the cost that landed upon it. Second, only two small changes of past numbers are going to be recommended from this review. And third, the substantive fixes lie in fiscal year 28 for reasons I'll explain a little bit later. So here we go. A quick grounding because the beginning plays a part in everything hereafter. Article 46 created the fund at the annual town meeting in 2017. Revenue approved to be from the room and rental fees only, money approved to be spent only on facility upkeep. There was a $100,000 cap, spending cap, and the key word here, it's meant to break even. Hold on to that standard because most of what we found was a drift away from that. That didn't work. There we go. So this is the hinge. At annual town meeting 2020, the cap was more than doubled to $225,000. At the committee's own note, the Finance Committee's own note, it tells you why. The report showed a $125,000 subsidy that had been previously paid with free cash through an article at town meeting, and it was moved into the fund, into the revolving fund, because of COVID budget pressures. The cap increase was reactive and it was not planned. The takeaway, for years, the general fund quietly carried this building's biggest cost, which was actually about $215,000 in total from fiscal year 18 through fiscal year 2020. So the fund's early, quote, surpluses were never real. And since fiscal year 21, the fund has carried 100% of all utility costs. That's roughly $470,000 to date. There's a lot of information here, by the way, and I'm not reading from it because I wanted to tell a story, but I wanted to give you the stuff behind it too to read through. So that was kind of my approach here. So at the annual town meeting in 2022, that was the inflection point. So Article 44 renamed the fund and made the town administrator the authorized spender. And honestly, I feel that's good governance. That's a good, that was a great approach to take, given the issues you were facing. Article 45 held the cap at $225,000. This is also when our cultural affairs director was hired. And a quick note on that, the director's compensation, the Finance Committee's report built in that full compensation into its picture of the building's total cost to taxpayers and rightly showed the numbers both with and without that salary. I want to be precise about one point that's easy to misread. That salary has never been charged to the revolving fund. It was always paid 100% by the general fund, Department 698. We'll come back to that later. So the real story of 2022 is that costs and expectations drifted apart. The gap the Finance Committee documented in their 2024 report. This chart is the whole problem in one picture. The green is what the general fund paid for utilities through fiscal year 20 and a small piece in fiscal year 21. The blue is what the revolving fund itself spent. Look at the blue section of fiscal year 21. Spending looks like it jumps dramatically, but that's not overspending. It's the utility moving into the revolving fund from the general fund. The cap line, the purple dotted line, just chases that cost upwards. 100,000, 225,000, then 300,000 when the committee opened its full review. The cap was reacting to the costs, not controlling them. The detail behind that, Munis confirms that the electric and gas and water for fiscal years 18 through fiscal year 20, approximately $216,000, were paid from the general fund, not the revolving fund. One correction or note from the Finance Committee report, the earlier estimate that they stated was for 4 years. The records show 3 and only a very small piece from that 4th year, so it wasn't a full 4th year. And here's the nuance worth understanding. Those early years were actually a subsidy in the revolving fund's favor, but the 6 years since, they carried the full load, roughly $470,000, and it overburdened the revolving fund far more than the general fund was ever overburdened. I'm not recommending we restate anything historical, only that we document both sides so the record is honest. This is the slide that reframes the conversation. Revenue has not been the problem. It's been steady in recent years around 160 to 175, with fiscal year 25 as a peak. 2 flags, both on the chart. First, the circled line to the circle to the left. $27,680 was booked as revenue in fiscal year 17, and the fund did not legally exist at that point, so it should not be there. And about $21,405, which is the sum of the little turquoise items. Fun little a note that we found that the Recreation Department had been told to allocate a portion of their revenues, their program revenues, to the 204 building, and when they were turning the funds over to the treasurer's office, they were turning it over to the community center revolving fund. So that money should have come to the 204 Sisson Road cultural revolving fund. It went to the community center revolving fund. That needs to be rectified. We'll address both of those a little bit more, but the pressure was really always, other than those two items, on the cost side. So this just illustrates a little bit more about that, recreation revenue being misallocated. Recreations programs that happen in the 204 gym. The 204 gym is roughly 7.6% of the total cultural building square footage, but that revenue allocation was going to the community center revolving fund, and it was roughly, again, $21,400 from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 26. I have put a stop to that immediately when I started my research and found that was stopped, but we do have to reallocate these funds back to their proper home. So now the natural instinct might be just to redirect that revenue here going forward. I want to correct that instinct. A revenue transfer is the wrong tool. Under 53E.5, it should have been an expense allocation, not a revenue allocation. Recreation should pay its share of the building's costs. The model on the next slide does exactly that. Two related points. First, the director. Let me say it again. The salary has always been 100% general fund, Department 698, never charged to the revolving fund. Allocating part of that going forward is a new choice, not a fix for anything historically. Second, the principle that drives our fix. A revolving fund covers program costs, not building ownership. Utilities have a base load that you have to pay even if the building's empty. That's the town's load to bear. And the larger load is by the programs and the departments driven by their use. Property services split the same way. The base versus use logic is where those percentages come from. This is the full picture in one view. Revenue is steady, expenses climbing once the fund absorbed everything in fiscal year 21, and ending cash, which is the, it's hard to tell on that screen, but it's blue. The blue line, so you can see cash goes up, cash goes down. The ending cash was trending down, and essentially showing that within a couple of years, the fund would have no more money if we continued down this path. This slide shows the cumulative effect of putting building ownership costs on a program fund, and it's the case for reallocating, which is the rest of this presentation. Here's what we do about it, and the timing matters. Two items can proceed right away. One, reclassifying that circled fiscal year 17 revenue posting, and two, documenting the utility history as it happened both ways, to the detriment of the general fund at first, to the detriment of the revolving fund second. The three substantive items: one, the director split, the 35-65 allocation, and the revisions that will land in fiscal year 28. Now you might be asking yourself, why fiscal year 28? First, our revolving funds are somewhat interconnected and should be reviewed together, and this is my number one. There's a few more to go. And second, these changes have to create appropriations correctly through a budget cycle in order for us to do it right. This is the framework, and it's simpler than it looks, so I'll try to make it make sense. Every cost that the building has sorts into two different pools. Pool number one, 35%, that's the base building costs. The town would pay this just to own and operate the building. Just as an asset of the town's covering 35% of the base building costs. That cost belongs to the general fund. Pool number two, 65%, is program driven. It's shared by the departments that use the building and by the revolving fund. The percentage on each line isn't arbitrary. It's a base versus use split that I just described. Oh, that's really small. I should have made it bigger. Sorry. So applied to the full fiscal year 27 projection, now mind you, this is a projection, not any real number. The allocation would make a 35% general fund base building load, $125,500 in total, and a program-driven cost of $220,500. So if you set that against the revenue in this that I estimated at about $144,000, that number's probably light, but again, we have some play between here and fiscal year 28. And the point is plain. The building costs far more than the building costs far more to operate than rentals bring in. And the difference is a cost of owning the building, not a failure of the fund. The line-by-line splits are on the slide. Here is where the fix becomes concrete. The 65% program pool is partially distributed to the departments that actually use the building. Administration is the largest at about $48,700. Then recreation at $14,000, cultural affairs, and so on. All in, about $86,000 of those costs would be covered by departments receiving an allocation of cost, the cost that's related to their use of the building. The rest, roughly $134,000, is true studio and culture program costs that stays in the revolving fund. And note, the recreation line, that $14,000 is the proper replacement for the misdirected revenue previously noted, an expense allocation done right. Once the program costs are billed to the departments that drive them, the fund's net cost is about $134,000 against roughly $144,000 in net revenue, a small surplus. After years of structural deficits, this is the proof the framework works. The fund finally does what the statute always intended. It breaks even on its own program-driven activity. 4 recommendations. Number 1, restructure the cap at the next town meeting. So let me clarify a little something on this note before I make it. I did have a conversation with DLS because there is some confusion about whether or not we would have to make our spending limit the gross or the net relative to the portion that the departments are paying, right? If it's the gross, that spending limit would be closer to 225, the total, and if it's the net, it would be closer to the 150. Part of that is a mechanism of how we choose between now and then to allocate the bills as they come in. If we want to allocate the bills to all of those departments as they come in, which is a little tedious and cumbersome, then it's probably going to be the net. If we want to do it where we pay the bills out of one account and then accounting allocates them later, it would have to be the higher of the two. So I did clarify that with DLS, and basically we have to make a decision on how we do that between now and then. We have plenty of time, and I'm not worried. So 2, we allocate the director's salary 50-50 in the fiscal year 28 budget. Again, a forward change, not a correction. There is certainly a portion of the director's salary that is tied to programming and a portion that is tied more to the town. Number 3, we implement the 35-65 allocation starting in fiscal year 28. And number 4, we formalize recreation share as expense allocation, not a revenue transfer. Already stopped, so that's pretty clear. 3 of the 4 are fiscal year 28 by design. Again, the same 2 reasons. We want to review the funds together, and we want to appropriate correctly. So to close, the fund was never broken on revenue. It carried cost it was never meant to, and a few things landed in the wrong place. Aside from the 2 small corrections, noting we're proposing changes, we're proposing changes a past number. The updated structure rolls out in fiscal year 28, and this is a response to what the Finance Committee documented, and I'm glad to take your questions. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I open up to the board for questions. Mr. Kelleher?
I'm all set. I just want to say an excellent job. I love the cost split. I think that's very fair between programming and municipal use. So I think, and we're breaking even. I always wanted to hear that term, and I like it very much. But excellent job, and I hope Kara's happy with it as well, because I think it justifies what goes on in that building.
Kara got a preview too, so.
Okay, good.
Ms. Doucette?
No, I don't have really any comment, but thank you very much. This
Thank you.
is quite a presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing on the substance of the presentation, but I do want to take the opportunity, as long as the finance director is sitting in front of us, to say how refreshing it is to get a report that you don't need a degree in mathematics to understand. Feedback I'm getting from the public since it got put in the packet was extremely positive, and it was very readable, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Handler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, and thanks, Jen. Another great job. A few, I think they'll be very easy questions. I was always under the impression that you can't pay a full-time employee out of a revolving fund. Is it because we're tying part of her salary to programming? What, I think I'm missing, I must be
I
missing.
don't believe that that is the case, but
Okay.
I would love to dig into that and get back to you, just to be clear.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
I don't think that's the case, but I will double check that.
I'm sure it's me with the error, not you, but I had.
Don't count on that.
Okay, well, and then if you wouldn't mind, I'm fuzzy on how the rec program revenue is broken down to an actual dollar value. Are you using that
question.
are you using that 7.6? Or are you just taking a percentage of what they generate there? And what is that percentage?
Sure, so the early part of this, putting together the, like I said, the vast amount of data that went into pulling this together, Kara probably walked around the building with her little wheelie measury thing for hours, getting me measurements of certain spaces that I wanted to make sure I captured these costs correctly. And the gym was one for me that was the most difficult to, it's a very large space, it's primarily utilized by recreation, so it was certainly one that I wanted to figure out. So basically what I did is a calculation, and this is something we should review annually, by the way, not just stick it and then walk away. If programming changes, if whatever, right, we should just review these annually. But basically I took a component of the square footage as well as their percentage of the gym usage to come to a percentage of the total. And that's how I did all of the other departments and all of the other spaces that they use. So it's a complex formula that comes down to a basic fair percentage based on the percentage of the building that they're using and the percent of the programming schedule that they are.
Okay, so I follow that. If I could continue, Mr. Chair?
Please.
A couple more questions now based on that. And Cara might be the one to answer this. What percentage, if we were to allocate the gym usage to the rec versus to the 204 cultural? Is it 90% rec use and 10% cultural?
Of just the gym?
Or is it all rec?
Whole spreadsheet, and honestly, I don't have that memorized.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Can I come back to you with that answer?
100%,
Okay.
thank you. And then I would also like to ask, why stop at only space, right? The actual gym? Why not what it costs to run the gym and break that out, like electricity and,
That's essentially what the square footage does, right?
So that's what that does.
It's applied to
okay,
the electric bill. So if it's 7.6% of the total building, and the electric bill
it's
is the total
7.6% of
building,
everything,
it's 7.6% of everything.
okay?
But again, like we then based it off of also their programming schedule.
If you could also get to me, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about getting this information, but I'd love to see what the Recreation Department generates for revenue at the 204.
Yeah, so, and this is part of the reason why I'm recommending these changes in fiscal year '28, because these two in particular they're intertwined, right? And that one's next on my list, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna review Recreation Revolving Fund next.
Right.
And then we'll start to see some connections happen, right?
Right, because in my mind, Mr. Chair, if we're losing, if the 204 is losing the opportunity to rent that amazing space, because the rec department takes it for 80% of the open and available hours, maybe 7.6% is not the right number.
I don't disagree with you,
Okay, yeah.
but I had to start somewhere.
No, and that's my point, is,
Yeah.
and you made it very clear earlier, revisit as we go. So, no, I think what you've done is a fantastic jumping-off point. And I like how we're gonna take a look at the revolving fund for the rec and, kind of sync them up and put them together. That's it for me at this point, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. For the public's sake, I just want to stress the fact that we're not entertaining a Pool 1 option or a Pool 2 option, because there is no swimming pool being entertained at this moment in time.
Different use of the word, yes.
Correct. Jen, could you elaborate a little bit on that 27.6 from FY '17? And I understand that, you know, the monies, there wasn't an account for those monies to go into, so in your thought, how did it happen, and then what's the correction ultimately?
Yeah, so I don't honestly know exactly how it happened, other than the fact that revenue that was received for what was to become revolving fund revenue was put into the revolving fund before it legally existed. So the vote at the 2017 annual town meeting voted to create the revolving fund as of 7/1, you know, for fiscal year 18.
Okay, but so
So it
finance,
should have been general fund revenue.
gotcha, finance got overzealous and created it in that fiscal year, okay,
They put it in the wrong place
sure. And now, so now what's your correction?
to move it to the general fund.
And just by whoosh, magic wand?
I may have to dig into that a little bit
Okay.
and let you know. I
Yeah.
wanna make sure I do it right.
Sure,
But again, that's an inquiry that's out with the LS.
yeah, perfect, awesome. Anything else for Jen? Jay, do you want to say anything while Arthur's getting?
No, I've been working with this
Getting up to the
for quite a
microphone.
few months now with Jen. I think she did a great job putting it together. I think the key is we just can't, you know, there's no action tonight because we can't make any
Sure.
of these changes until FY '28. You
Yep.
know, we have no appropriation for a lot of it. What's brought to light is there's some stuff that admin is going to be charged for that, you know, once we have to start paying for, I'm not sure we're gonna wanna do. Like, we let outside agencies come and utilize the facility for free. Well, in this instance, admin would have to pay that through the municipal budget now. So I think those relationships may cease to exist in the future when, you know, the general fund will subsidize it. In the past, the revolving fund's been paying that, and that's not necessarily, that's not right either.
Sure.
So, there's a lot of changes that will take place because of this, but I think the reality is they're all based in good found science here, so. Good
Excellent.
found math, not science. Yeah.
Math is a science. Noreen, how are you?
How are you?
Excellent.
Noreen Donahue, Headwaters, speaking on my own behalf. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Handler, I also had that impression that through Mass General laws, you could only pay a full-time employee their full salary if you included their full benefits. Through the wonders of AI, I have just learned that you actually can split the salary, as Jen knows, but that must also carry the benefits. So if it's a 35%, 65%, then that salary would carry 35% plus 35% of the director's benefits. And of course, we always verify AI on a phone, but I was surprised to see that, because we've already said that. So with that said, I have a question, and honestly, it's the one we've been struggling with for 8 years, which is vision, so, for this building. So I guess I'm trying to understand, Kara, who does a fabulous job, does she direct the entire building excepting the municipally allocated space?
Can you say that one more time?
Okay, so the Director of Cultural Affairs, does she direct the operations of the entire building, excepting the space that has been put aside for other municipal operations?
So it's a team thing, like we talk together about that, like where we're gonna utilize a group that comes in, or what offices the municipal side of it will use. Kara, and I wouldn't even say on the cultural side of it, she does it alone in a vacuum either. I mean, she works with my office hand in hand.
Okay. You know, as we know, the vision for that building has morphed, you know, so many times over the last 8 years that that sounds, you know, like we landed in a place that might be manageable, although that would have been hard to see 6 or 7 years ago. So I'll let that settle in for a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, excellent, thank you for that information. Fabulous. We'll jump right into the year-end budget transfers.
Yeah, so this is the year-end budget transfer for the water and wastewater department. The reason it wasn't on the agenda last week is we had believed that the approval path was Water Wastewater Commissioners Finance Committee, but DLS informed us that the Select Board has to vote as well. So we're adding it tonight. It would have been in the packet last week had we had that information. This is a transfer for water and wastewater from expenses to salaries or salaries to expenses.
Yes, and all due to collective bargaining.
But already went before those other two.
Already went before. both
Already
of
all
those.
approved, yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the year-end budget transfers as authorized per Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B,
Second.
as presented in the packet.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item C, fiscal year 2027 Human Service Grant recipients.
Jim's going to give a quick update on that.
Please.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from the chair of Site Law Services, one of the potential grantees.
Thank you. We'll come get you when it's over.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The FY '27 Human Services Grant Program received 16 proposals totaling $108,500 in funding requests, with $83,000 available for awards. Requests exceeded available resources by $25,300, underscoring the growing need for human services in Harwich. A multidisciplinary review team evaluated each proposal using standardized scoring criteria based on community impact, organizational capacity, and alignment with the priorities outlined in the request for proposals. Team members then met to discuss each application and reach consensus on the most equitable and effective allocation of the funds. So to review those discussions, we have the program administrator here tonight, Kara Mawini again. I'm going to ask her to come up to talk about the process. This process was well underway by the time I started, so it was, Kara did a lot of the work along with the rest of the team in regards to reviewing. I joined late, was able to review the impressive work and the applications that have come in, but I would like Kara to, I'm going to turn it over to her to kind of go through that process.
Great, thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Kara.
A little bit later this year than in past years, but we announced the request for proposals for the Human Services grants in late April. And then those were open and available for various human services organizations, nonprofit, in the area that have to serve Harwich residents the opportunity to ask for money. This year, because of the allotment of funding at $83,000 was less than what we've notoriously had year over year, we only allowed folks that were applying for these grants the opportunity to only bid up to $8,000. In past years, it's been $10,000. This was meant for the opportunity to make sure that we had enough funding across the board to be able to provide these organizations where we felt the greatest need. And then the next allocation of that is we're constantly seeking new organizations that are serving Harwich residents that we may have not tapped into before, which give us a different variety when we look at these proposals to better understand what we're doing and who we're serving and what's kind of the key demographic that we're seeing in Harwich residents in particular. All this concludes with us meeting anywhere between May and June with a group of individuals that are all town staff in order to organize and look at every single proposal that it comes in. And we look at several categories, not only are they a valid nonprofit, but also what categories of which they are serving. Is it an actual human service or health-related matter? And how many units unduplicated of Harwich residents are they serving to warrant the funding request in which they are asking for? So I would like to thank Ashley Symington, Sue Jessel, and Carrie Schruner for their assistance in joining me this year in reviewing all these applications. Going through 16 proposals is a quite grueling process when you're trying to fund all these organizations and give everybody a little bit something. I would like to say we had a new applicant this year in comparison to past years. So we had the YMCA came in and actually applied for funding this year, which was new for us here in Harwich since I've been overseeing the program. And we also saw the return of the Harwich Children's Fund came back to the table and we're seeking funds. So overall, this program, it's a multi-month process from when proposals are put out in the ether and giving everyone an opportunity to apply to when we formally close the process. Your vote tonight will provide this funding to various key areas, from funding resources to housing services to outpatient care, legal services, and beyond. And a lot of this will emphasize on the youth in Harwich, and that was one of the primary focuses we found as a core group of individuals reviewing these proposals. Were really focused on when we wanted to see where those best efforts were. We also found that the highest amount of residents being served for these organizations that did propose were youth-based organizations that were seeking funding for youth-based programs on a variety of different levels. We also outlined key problem areas that we found that we could capture for next year, in addition to looking at opportunities for other areas of funding, such as opioid funding and other resources that are available through state statute that would be pushed forward out through state legislative that comes into the town level, which there's pockets of funding that we can recommend for some of these groups that we did not award a full amount. Not everybody received everything that they asked for, but we made sure that everybody got something. It was a fantastic time again. I'm happy to still continue to do this program until I'm told not to do this program anymore. And it's been a great eye-opening opportunity, and it's always wonderful to see where the resources in our town are being allocated to.
Excellent. Anything from the board?
Ready? Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the fiscal year 2027 Human Service Grant recipients as presented in the packet.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? My comment will be, I believe last year I didn't support this, and reluctantly supported this year, and my reluctance is based on the Housing Assistant Corp getting the $4,000. And I'm not saying the organization doesn't support the folks here in Harwich, but with the amount of funding they receive elsewhere, I think that $4,000 could absolutely support some of these other requests and have a much greater impact than it does with Housing Assistance Corp. But again, out of respect for those that invested their time and effort into this, I will support the cause. So with that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. 4-0, that's it.
I'll go get Dawn, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
But would you be amenable to taking E, F, and G out of line, out of order at this point? I think we have the two people sitting here.
Yep,
Thank you.
we'll wait for Don and Jeff to come back.
Thank you for doing that, Mr. Chair.
All right, with that said, we're going to move on to item E. We'll come back to D momentarily, but a discussion and a potential vote on a common vit license app from HOTS LLC, DBA Heart of the Sea, located at 711 Main Street.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the common victular license for HOT LLC, DBA Heart of the Sea. Discussion. My question is, and the applicant is here? Hello, how are you? Please, if you can come forward. I believe the paperwork stated that this had a June 8 opening?
Yes, good evening, everybody. This is my very first time, so I'm a little excited. Yes, the plan was to open on June 1st, but because we're waiting for one building permit from the ownership, that's why we were like holding. I guess on Wednesday, there's gonna be an inspection from the fire department, and then we'll be all set after that.
Okay, so at this point, the establishment is not open?
No, not open yet.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the business that was in that building is moving across the parking lot, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you for that clarification, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. F,
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a new entertainment license application for HOTS LLC, DBA Heart of the Sea, located at 711 Main Street, to include weekday jukebox radio television inside and outside from 11 A to 9 P, and on Sunday, jukebox radio television inside and outside 11 A to 9 P, as presented.
Second.
motion and a second, discussion. So I assume this means patio seating.
I think, if I'm not wrong, there is like, it's gonna be a couple of picnic tables outside, but I don't think, to be honest with you, I'm gonna have something outside, like television, so everything will be inside.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any further discussion?
Just one thing.
Please.
Mr. Chair. Is that music outside gonna be amplified? In other
I-
words, could you potentially have problems with the butters or neighbors? That's the,
I don't think it's gonna be outside. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be everything inside to avoid any complaints from neighbors or departments outside. Thank you.
However, with that stated, the application is for indoor-outdoor. So the approval is for indoor-outdoor, so they can, if they so choose, put it outside. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Item G.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Good luck. Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve on a new farmer's market permit application for My Cousin's Wine LLC, DBA My Cousin's Wine, for a special license to sell wine at the Harwich Farmers Market every Thursday from June 25th, 2026 through August 27th, 2026, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at 204 Sisson Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion amongst the board. Hearing none, please.
How you doing, Anthony? Tomorrow, My Cousin's Wine. Nothing to elaborate, really. Our family's been making wine I'm fourth generation. We have fifth generation, over 100 years in America. Love for everybody to come down, try it if they want, and hopefully take home a bottle.
There you go. Further discussion?
I would just say, here's a local guy who put all the work together, great presentation. I just wish you well.
Thank you.
He's looking for free wine. Anybody else? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
We're going to go back. Give me 1 second, folks. So we're going to go back to item D. And item D is listed as a discussion vote on the reappointment of Kevin DuPont of the Board of Health. Now, clearly, Mr. DuPont was before us this evening, and he resigned effective immediately. However, the discussion regarding Mr. DuPont and his reappointment really was on the agenda to talk about process. So if the board is comfortable, I understand how the agenda is written, but if the board is comfortable, really, the goal with this agenda item is to talk about a process of how, and I was asked this, how we take or request that an individual who's currently serving on a board or committee back to the interview committee. So if the board's comfortable, we'll move forward in that discussion, because again, although it's not directed at Mr. DuPont, it was really never going to be about Mr. DuPont this evening. It was going to be about the process. So are my colleagues comfortable with moving forward with that?
Yes, I am.
I'm fine.
Okay, who wants to open up some discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. McCaskill.
Given that the agenda item is for reappointment, and I understand what you're doing, are you not going to take comments from the public on the reappointment of Kevin DuPont?
No, yeah, correct. So I'm not even taking comments from the board on the reappointment of Mr. DuPont at this point. If you want to chime in on a process, I'm happy to allow you to do that.
With all due respect, on the agenda item, Kevin DuPont does not resign to the Board of Selectmen, so he did not resign tonight. He may have implied the intent to it, but given that the vote is here, I see no better time for this board, even after the process conversation, to reappoint Kevin DuPont to the Board of Health, regardless of whatever we do for, town
Yeah,
administrator.
no, the only thing I'll state is that he did resign to the town clerk today.
To the town clerk earlier today.
Stamped by the clerk?
Oh, I don't know if she stamped it. He gave it to her.
Yeah, my only thought is, this is a great time for the board to show the other 35-plus committees and hundreds of volunteers that the majority of the board, if not the entire board, supports Kevin DuPont and the fact that the process was not followed, and that he resigned because somebody by themselves put this forward for the interview committee without even telling them why. And I think it's a great statement from this board who constantly says that we're losing volunteers and we're losing people. This is a great opportunity for you all, without knowing any of the information as to what led to today, whether he resigned or not, to show your faith in him and his 5 great years to the town of Harwich and input, and reappoint him, whether he accepts it or not.
Thank you. Open up to the board.
I'm comfortable with that.
No, well, I meant, are there other things you want to discuss?
Absolutely. I want to
Please.
discuss the process. And I'll start by saying, thank you, Mr. Chair. This, to me, is a very unfortunate set of circumstances. And I thought, I had been confused for the last X number of weeks, I'll say since May 18th, at how long it's taken us to vote to reappoint our committee members. At our select board meetings on May 18th, June 1st, June 8th, and June 15th, Member Howell stated, he was the chair at the time, that he was removing a volunteer from the reappointment list. With no information, no name, no reason why, Board Member Howell kept stating, I am removing this person so we can have a further discussion with him. I went back and watched all the meetings, just so I'm confident in what I'm saying. So last week, I get a phone call from Mr. DuPont. And he asks me to clear up why he is being referred to the interview committee. And he wanted my explanation. And to that, I was not aware that it was Mr. DuPont that was being removed from the reappointment list. So as I'm trying to figure this out in real time, here's what I came up with. Mr. Howell decided there's an issue with Mr. DuPont. He cryptically removed Mr. DuPont from the reappointment list by not using his name. He did not inform this board, of who or why over 4 select board meetings. He then independently directed the staff to call Mr. DuPont to bring him before the interview committee. That interview committee meeting was to be held tomorrow. All of this without, I'll speak for myself, I don't know about the rest of my board, but I had no idea. I had no idea of this whatsoever. We as board members don't operate independently. So, Mr. Chair, my position is that our process is not flawed, but rather the way Board Member Howell decided to conduct board business on his own, independent of the board, and I find that to be the issue. And I'll direct the public, and I'll direct anyone who's paying attention to look at the June 9th, 2025 meeting at the 40-minute mark, and the June 23rd, 2025 meeting at the 17-minute mark, where I'll give credit to Mr. Howell as chair. He followed the process that is in place perfectly. And I'll direct the board and the members of the public to page 23 of the committee handbook, where it states, any concerns regarding a board, committee, or commission member's ability to meet the responsibilities or conduct as outlined in the committee handbook will be referred to the interview committee for review. Now, the interview committee can't refer someone to itself. That needs, at least in my opinion, and how past practice has shown us how to do it, this board would be the one to refer to the interview committee. So I would like to have Mr. Howell walk me through the process for him to arrive at the action of operating independent of this board on this matter. And then, if there's a discussion about the process, I'm all ears. I'd like to hear it. But I believe we have a process in place. I believe the process has been employed multiple times since I've been a board member. And I'm interested to know why this was a different process, which then, unfortunately, resulted in what we had here tonight. So I have more, but I'd like to hear the I'd like to hear the examples or the opinion or how we got here from Mr. Howell, if I could.
If you so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Handler, I don't know where you were in those meetings, but everybody was told the exact same thing, but there was going to be a master list. If there was anybody on this board wanted any further discussion on, they could identify them so we could pull them off. No one at any time, and I can say this for a fact, talked about removing Mr. DuPont at all. The talk was about having a conversation about behavior. Now, unbeknownst to you, I had a conversation with our legal counsel, with Jay on the phone, and we determined that the proper place to do this is the interview committee, because we're not, despite what you may think has been normal process, no one is supposed to be able to come into this room and disparage individuals, including board members, and that's happened in the past. My concern was that special town employees, of which all of our appointees are, enjoy the same rights as anyone else, and if there's something that you want to discuss that's behavioral, it's not appropriate to do it in a full board meeting, which was the entire intent of all this. My expectation was we'd come out of that conversation tomorrow with a recommendation to approve his reappointment, period. I don't know how the word removal has gotten associated, both removal from the list, which is really the only time, as you heard yourself, that word was associated. That was the only time, to remove them from the list. It was not supposed to be remove them from the committee or any such thing, but there's no venue, it's not appropriate here to have a discussion about anything that might be behavioral based. It's that simple.
Mr. Chair, through you, one point. I hear what you're saying, Board Member Howell. I would just offer this to you. If I, as an interview committee member, which I was for the last year, singled out a volunteer from any committee or board or commission without you knowing, without this board knowing, and I took an action and I directed staff to call that person and set up an interview committee meeting, absent any discussion with this board, and I brought said person to the interview committee, and then I called Mr. Piekarski, the chair, and said, let's put this on the agenda and have a discussion. I don't think that you would accept that. As a matter of fact, I would put anything I own on the fact that you would not accept that behavior as one board member acting independent of this board. I've seen it before, and unfortunately, I don't agree one bit with your process to get to where you operated independently. So that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, once again, everyone on this board was afforded the same opportunity to have the same discussion.
That's not what we're talking about.
It is what we're talking about.
No, it's not.
You're blowing past a conversation that we had in 2 public meetings.
No,
Yes.
4 public meetings where you said 4 times as the chair.
What did you expect them to do?
Three times as the chair.
The only thing I'm going to say is, what did you expect to happen if you had made a recommendation, that we just fire them summarily?
Absolutely not. We would do what you've done as chair in the past with 3 other people over the last 3 years. As I directed the public and this body here to go back on our videos and watch how you handled it.
Those were not expirations of terms.
They were referrals to the interview committee. It's an action. Now, I find it, the other issue is, Mr. Chair, one more if I may, is that, well, let me address this point. There were 3 meetings you were the chair that you mentioned clearly, if anybody has anybody they want to pull off, and I agree with you on that. Nobody did in 3 meetings. My feeling is you were waiting until you got done being chair and then could go to the interview committee and then bring Kevin, who clearly you have the problem with because no one else brought Mr. DuPont's name up, or any other name of any other volunteer for that matter. I view this as a strategic plan on your part to bring a volunteer into the interview committee and do whatever you were going to do. Maybe make him uncomfortable, maybe make him do what he did prior to the interview committee meeting, which is resign. I think it's awful. And I'll also say that if a family member of mine was on a committee and I had a problem with somebody else on that committee, my first course of action would be to go to the chair and say, Mr. Chair, here's my issue. How do you, as the chair of this board, feel we can remedy my concerns? I would not act independently. It's been driven into me since the day I became a board member. We do not act independently. We are a 5-person board, and any action requires a board vote or minimum consensus. You ignored it. I don't see any other way to put it. It was ignored. So if the process that's in the committee handbook is flawed, let's create another process, Mr. Chair. So this never, ever happens again.
Give you a minute if you want to respond, and then we're going to move to process.
All I'll say is I wish that I were that brilliant that I could presuppose the future and know that I was going to be in a different place to be able to do something.
I don't know what that meant.
So,
I don't know what you said meant.
so I'm gonna intervene here, and so, again, my intent, with or without the individual who was up for reappointment, was to talk about the process, and I appreciate the fact that you pulled out of the committee handbook the fact that it's more or less, and I think whether it's a vote or a consensus of the board, because I believe it may have been a consensus last time when we referred the gentleman back regarding.
One was consensus, 2 were votes.
Yeah. So with that said, I have zero issue with adhering to what's written in the committee handbook. It's the process that we can use moving forward as a group. And I think to the overall point that if there's a desire to ask a committee member that's up for reappointment to return to the interview committee, we just need to be careful with the discussion that occurs on that evening that is brought forward. Back to your point of, there shouldn't be a lot of discussion about the individual's personal performance on said committee or board. So I think that, again, unless somebody disagrees, that's the formula we'll use as we move forward here. I see you at the podium if you'd like to make a comment.
Yes, I would. The comment was made that there was a behavioral issue. You said that, all right? I have 2 questions on that. One, why would a person come to you with that behavioral issue? Why not to the town administrator or Carrie? Why you? Along with that, why should you be the one to interview something like that when your wife sits on that board? That is a complete conflict of interest. And I think you know that.
It is not.
Yes, it is.
It is not.
Yes, it is. Because you
fine.
cannot be impartial. No. I've heard you before. You cannot be impartial. So that is an issue. You should not be the one doing that. And my other question was, why did the person come to you? If I had an issue with something like that, I would have gone to the town administrator, or I would have gone, in this case, to Carrie. Why you?
Mr. Chair, again,
Yeah.
this is gets us to the spot where the legal counsel said we should not be having this
Correct.
discussion.
Yeah, so,
All right, those are just my comments.
correct, and I appreciate your time and your comments.
All right.
We're not going to get into back and forth on that particular item, but agreed.
And that's fine, but I am going to say one thing. With what has happened, I don't think this is going to be the last resignation you're going to get from that board.
Okay.
Because I think there are others, I'll just say others, I'm going to put it that way, that have the same opinion that both Kevin and I do. There's an issue. And I think that issue needs to be dealt with, and that it's not Kevin.
Thank you. So again, back to the the topic at hand. Unless there are any disagreements with the process as outlined in the committee handbook, that is the process we'll use going forward. And again, we'll just use caution as we bring up that matter at this meeting to refer back to interview. Agreement on that?
Full agreement, and if I could add one thing, Mr.
Please.
Chair, I think it's very, very important, especially with regulatory, that our board members do not interfere with any board, commission, any of their dealings or their business at all. We're liaisons, we're there to help, we're there to answer questions and keep them running smooth. We're not there to give opinions.
Well, you won't get a disagreement from me, and I will take that even beyond the regulatory boards. But I understand your
All
point.
boards, all committees, and all commissions, 100%. It's not for us to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to item H, which is discussion regarding the upcoming joint meeting with the Chatham Select Board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jen, do you have the clicker?
I don't, I give it back to him.
You want to grab it for me, Jim? All right, so we have the joint meeting with the Chatham Select Board this coming Thursday. I guess they posted the meeting for 5:30. We were under the impression it was going to be 6, but they posted the meeting for 5:30. Hopefully, everybody's still able to make it. In the interest of trying to help us move forward with the goal of looking at and evaluating the regional agreement moving forward, I've put together a draft presentation. The first couple of points I want to make clear with the draft presentation that I put together is hoping the board could give direction tonight on who we want to give the presentation, whether the 5 of you would like to do it, whether you'd like me to do it. Also, I'm making an assumption that we want a presentation, but if we don't, I'm open to that as well. So are we going to give a presentation? Who's going to give the presentation? And I included 2 asks in the draft presentation. Both are completely up for debate and a conversation here this evening. This hasn't been shared with Chatham yet, and I told Jill, the town manager, that if we had a presentation, I'd get it to her tomorrow, probably by the end of the day. So have plenty of time to revise anything in it. The 2 asks that I have in this presentation are a proposal of what a change could look like. I'm certainly not set in stone on that, so we can change it to any way, and when we get to that this evening, I'll explain the basis of the proposal that I included in this draft. And then second would be proposing to put together a working group so that there's some action at the end of the meeting on Wednesday night or Thursday night, being that we're not all going to be able to vote there to change the regional agreement Thursday night, so that there'd be some movement at the end that would leave us in a better direction. So those are the questions that we need to resolve: is who's going to give it? First, do we want it? Second, who's going to give it? And then around the 2 asks, do we have any changes to that we'd like to have? So with that, I'll just go through it real briefly, Mr. Chair, and
Please.
then we can get to that towards the end. All right. So first, put together just an open slide. Kind of speaks to the situation: 1 district, 2 towns, one shared challenge. The reality in my kind of overview framing of this is really a Monomoy school issue. This isn't a Harwich problem. This isn't a Chatham problem. And when I say it's a Monomoy school issue, it's not because Monomoy has done anything wrong. Monomoy has very clearly moved forward with a program of services and an expectation of what their district presents as an end product, and they've made it clear of what the costs are associated with that over the last number of years. They've created a situation where they have a product, and to be able to continue with that product, there's a cost associated with it. We have an issue associated with our levy capacity and where we're at to fund additional growth without cutting services elsewhere in the town, with the assumption that we're not looking to bring an operational override to town meeting in the near future. So, it's a Monomoy school issue. Based on our levy capacity, we can't afford the 6% and 7% increases moving forward over the next number of years. This isn't a Chatham problem, and I've worked hard in this presentation to not pose it as an issue, something that Chatham has done wrong in the way they manage their town or their finances. So put together this slide of where we are. You know, we're at our levy limit as far as where Harwich is. We're at 99.76. We have about $50,000 in our levy limit. What that means is we have no ability to tax inside Proposition 2.5 outside of where we're at today. We have the 2.5 we get in new growth, and that's really it. The assessment, the MSRD, the Monomoy Regional School Assessment increase alone is $1.96 million for the town of Harwich, and 58 cents of every dollar we spend is spent on Monomoy. The assessment, and this is really important, I think, to note, Chatham's assessment over the last 16 years has grown by 16%, where Harwich's has grown by 62%. The formula that was set up originally just is not working at the moment for Harwich. This is not a criticism of Chatham or the district, it's just the fiscal reality and why we're here this evening. So some more where our financial pressures come from. You know, our total new revenue in FY27 was $3.4 million. MSRD, Monomoy Regional, ate up 1.9, just about 2 million of that. In our the share of the budget that we have for Monomoy is larger than police and fire combined. As I said, we're at our levy limit. We're at 99.76% of our levy limit. Our projected levy capacity in FY27 is 150,000. It was 50 in FY26. And this is kind of a striking thing. At the 1.96 million increase by Monomoy schools in the last year, that's 26 times our levy capacity. So that the one ask of the Monomoy School District is 26 times higher than what we have available in our levy capacity. I did a profile of the two towns. You know, the point of this isn't to make, like I said, it's not to be adversarial. It's not to really look at one town versus the other. But there are some highlights that are worth noting. Harwich is 2 times larger, yet we pay 74% of the total district, or 77% of the total district assessments. The assessment is roughly $2,400 per Chatham resident, and it's about $1,700 per Chatham. I'm sorry, $2,400 for Harwich residents, $1,700 for Chatham residents. It's about just about a $700 difference between residents. And we have, like I've said 100 times already, only about $50,000 in levy capacity in FY26, and Chatham's at about 1.2 million. So they have more room in their budget to be able to absorb what's actually a lower cost than what we have. Some districts look at EQV, that's equalized value, that takes consideration the property values in the homes. If we looked at EQV as part of the assessment, it would dramatically change. Chatham would be paying 3 times the school assessment share than they pay today at EQV. Now, I'm not in no part of this presentation tonight. Am I going to propose using EQV because of the dramatic shift that it would add to the district formula? But it's if it was a portion of it, you know, right now they're paying 11 million. They'd be at approximately 25 million if EQV was taken into consideration.
And Jay, just to interrupt, right? I believe that's the EQV is not a factor because both communities, the assessed value is beyond the triggering number.
Exactly. So EQV is taken into consideration in the Chapter 70 formula, but once you get to a certain threshold, they don't take it into account anymore. And although their EQV is so much higher than Harwich, Harwich is not a poor community either. Right. So you know, it's not taken into account. And I think because of the massive shift, I'm not proposing this in, you know, the working group, if that is put together, could look at maybe using EQV as a portion of the formula, like other districts have done. But I think it's important to note, if EQV was taken into consideration, the shift would be dramatic. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, like I said, the 6 and 7% annual increase in assessments over the last number of years are really the problem. And what Monomoy has made clear is that to be able to stray off that would be a cut in services and a change in the program that they provide. So that's why this is a Monomoy school issue, because they've made it clear that they say, you know, ultimately what they've said is this is the level of services we want to provide. It's to pay for this without cuts in services, this is what we need. What we, inside of our levy, we just don't have the availability to do that. We've, 8 collective bargaining agreements have been structured over the last year. All of our departments were level services, some level funded in the past year. To be able to absorb that, we'll need an operational override moving forward, without cuts to services outside of Monomoy. And this slide represents the fact that we have no levy capacity whatsoever. This slide represents what I brought up, that this is the assessment since 2013. The assessment in Chatham has risen by 1.6 million or 16%, and it's risen by almost 13 million or 62% to Harwich. So the factors that have really made this shift dramatic are the enrollment shift. Chatham's enrollment has declined by 34%, where Harwich's has declined as well, but not at all by that trend. The per household burden, Harwich families contribute roughly twice what Chatham families do for household school costs. And the capital split, that's really one of the major flaws, I believe, with the regional agreement as it currently stands, is that capital, debt, and transportation are all assessed at the same percentage above MLC, which we'll get to in a second. But with the substantial capital that's been taken on in the last number of years, utilizing that 77-23 split has really driven costs to Harwich. This is important. We just put together a slide on how the assessment is calculated. So this is as it currently stands today. I worked with Mike McMillan on this. So basically, at the end of the day, we have minimum local contribution, MLC. There's no way we can get around how that's calculated from the state. That's a state set statute. That's non-negotiable. So the first 15.6 million for Harwich and 4.5 million for Chatham are minimum local contributions, and that's set by the state. It's the percentage in the money above that that's up for discussion. So the operating costs above MLC, there's 14.6 million for Harwich and 6.3 million for Chatham, and that's split at the 77-23%, which is based on the 3-year pupil percentages of how many students we have in the school. Capital, transportation, and debt are all set that based on that same allocation, the 77-22, 77-23% split, and that equals our total assessment of 33.1 million and 11.7 for Chatham. The only leverage we have in looking at the regional agreement is to change the split above MLC. So just this slide, I just want to make it clear that we're really not alone. This is a Cape-wide, statewide fiscal crisis as it relates to funding schools. Brewster had 2 operational overrides. Eastham had 2 operational overrides. Dennis did as well as part of their regional assessment. We're one of the few towns in the last number of years that has been able to absorb these increases without an operational override. We're trying to solve this through negotiations with other unions rather than asking voters for an override, but we're at a point where we're at kind of a break right now. We're moving forward. It's going to mean cuts in services if we're not able to work on a solution here, or an operational override, one or the other. So why this matters for both communities? For students, its children in both towns deserve a stable district. For Harwich residents, when we have 0 levy capacity, means difficult choices. For Chatham, we're hoping that their long-term interest is a healthy district and to be able to work with a stable partner. We're not asking them to solve a problem that we have, but just to sit with us and try to resolve the best regional agreement as possible. And for the district, its strength and have 2 member towns that remain viable and can afford the program that they want to run. So like I said, maybe a couple of these slides could probably be cut because this is the first time I've done it out loud. We kind of say the same thing over and over again, and I don't want to make it a long term, but ultimately all we're asking for Chatham to do is to continue to sit down with us and work on strengthening the formula. Probably I'll end up cutting this slide because I think I just said the same thing in the last slide. So that we get to what are we thinking of the ask in Chatham? So this is where this is up to you guys ultimately. I put together a proposal here, and I'll explain why, but, what are we thinking of asking? One of the things that I've heard is important is that when we go in, there's a clear ask. I want to frame that a little bit, because I think the clear ask on Thursday night should be the working group, because no action can be taken on what we believe the split should look like. That should probably be the work of the working group. But I also believe that Chatham probably deserves to hear, like, what are we thinking? Like, what are our thoughts around what a regional agreement change would look like? But if the board feels that not including anything and just leaving it to the working group to have a conversation is more productive, I'm okay with that too. This is just for a debate for tonight. So what I put together for a potential proposal is to basically reset the district to when it was formed from the first few years. So the 3-year rolling average of the first 3 years of the district was 7228. I met with Scott, the school superintendent, last week, and he confirmed this. At the time, the capital assessment was set at the 7228 as well. But I don't think, in talking to any of you or in any resident in Harwich recently, that the thought of leaving capital the way that it is based on assessment when we're building schools in other towns and renovating schools in other towns sits well with this board. So I couldn't leave. The original agreement had the operating assessment and the capital assessment at 7228 based on the first 3 years. So what I'm proposing here is that we set the operating assessment above MLC back to the starting point, which was 7228, but make a change on capital to capital and debt to 50/50, capital, transportation, and debt to 50/50. What I haven't included in here is fixed costs or the portion of the budget that is attributed to central office. I think that could potentially be a negotiating tool in the future, but for this, I left that in operating assessment in that cost. There's a conversation about whether the superintendent's salary should be split 77, 28, 23 or not. But for this proposal, I left central office costs or fixed costs in the operating assessment. I think there's a complication when you just call it central office costs of what truly those are, so that would have to be negotiated as well. So for this conversation, this is what I'm proposing, but certainly open to changes or not making a proposal whatsoever. And this is what that would look like. So if we made that change today, it's about $1 million swing. So it's about $700,000 in operating shift, and to get to 900, the rest of it is the debt and the capital, about 200,000 there. It's about a $900,000 swing, lower in Harwich, higher in Chatham. And so what we're looking to do to move on at the end here would be adopt a 5-year transitional formula. So that's another. So what I'm proposing with this would be that we lock it for 5 years and then relook at the formula in 5 years. That we also review elementary education consolidation. It's something that Chatham is going to have to deal with in the next few years, and I think that if we put together a work group, they should probably review potential opportunities around elementary consolidation, and that we commit to looking at this annually and bring something to the Monomoy Regional School District Committee. And that shut off this, I didn't want to shut it off because the last piece is the working group and what that looks like and the charge of it. So myself and Jill, one member of each select board, a representative from central office, either the superintendent, the business manager, and a school committee member from both Harwich and Chatham. We might want to add to that also a finance committee member from each of the communities, a representative at large from the communities. Obviously, when you start to get into 10, 12-person committees, it's hard to be productive and get work done. But I think a good walkaway at the end of Thursday night would be to reach some sort of agreement on next steps around a working group. They would review the proposal that we would make if we end up making a proposal around the transitional adjustment. They would explore options around Harwich's and Chatham's fiscal constraints and what's sustainable for the district. They would review the future of elementary and preschool education. and then report back to both select boards and make recommendations on potentially revising the regional agreement. So that's kind of where I'm at. Definitely open to any changes whatsoever, or nix the entire thing and go at it in a different direction, whatever everybody wants here.
I appreciate that, Jay. And before I open it up to the board, what I really want to focus on is a couple things, right? First and foremost is one of the last slides, which is the true purpose of this meeting is an attempt to work with the town of Chatham on evaluating the regional agreement and the formula, and to see if we can come up with something that works better, not only for the town of Harwich, but for the Monomoy Regional School District. So as much as Jay put together, which I appreciate, the slides that contain not only some of the relevant details, but the ask of the current assessment, meaning the 7228 and the 50/50. I don't want us to spend the next hour talking about what the percentages should be, because that's not the goal of Thursday's meeting, right? The goal is to walk away with an agreement to work together to see what we can do. And perhaps we form this committee, and you know, in 6 months' time, they come back and say, no, you know what, we're not interested in changing this formula at all, and we move forward. Or perhaps, you know, the group comes together, works collaboratively, and they come back with a different formula or a different suggestion. So as much as, you know, the why, I think, has been answered, and I think I've said this a million times, including during the last time we met with Chatham, there's a million different whys, and everybody has a different why, but this outlines some of the whys. This outlines some of the proposal that we could at least begin the conversation, and then see where that working group comes together and ultimately lands, provided they're willing to form this group with us. So with that said, I just wanted to preface that let's not beat the proposal, the percentages to death this evening, but certainly bring them up in your discussion if you so choose. Anita?
The only thing that I was gonna say is I like that 50/50. That was the only thing that was gonna come away with, but I'd be in favor of having Jay present this if Jay feels comfortable, if the board feels comfortable. Jay put it together, so I think that, thank you, Mr. Chair, for asking, but that's where I think I would be going with this. But other than that, thank you very much. It's a good presentation.
I could probably agree if he does it with hand puppets.
There you go.
Mr. Handler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to your point about dealing with percentages, mine says 7228 on the capital in here, and I thought, why bother going?
Right, yeah.
50/50 here.
Yeah.
Sounds a heck of a lot better to me than.
I had I'm gonna.
No,
own
no,
that.
no, no,
Yeah,
I get
it's-
it.
I had a vacation day on
No.
Thursday. It got a little screwed up.
I'm going to make it real quick, Mr. Chair.
Jim, turn around, I'll pull it out.
Listen.
I agree 100% with everything you said. I agree with Anita with respect to Jay presenting, if that's how the board feels we want to move forward. In my opinion, it's either going to be Jay or the chair. But as it sits right now, to walk out of there with a future understanding of where we're going with a working group would be a home run. So I'm with you 100%.
Excellent. Skeller?
Sure. Thank you, Jay. I think it's a great presentation. I think you should make it. We'll be there right behind you. I do have, and I do think it's important, as you mentioned, to have some people from the general public, both from Harwich and from Chatham. I think especially, we do have some people in the Finance Committee very attuned to this. I think we have some people in the community who know about this, who have dealt with this before, so I would definitely include people from the community. The other thing is, I see the savings, even with the 50/50 split, is approximately $1 million. Based on past performance, the budget goes up from the MRSD annually $2 million. I'd like some clarification, even with a change in the assessment formula, will we still face a deficit that we'll have to change things? So if you could look at that. I mean, in my opinion, if we're gonna go through this process with Chatham, we wanna get to the point where we're not having to go back to the voters all the time. And that may mean maybe you have to get a large override to build up the levy capacity. But I would look at that, so if when we go through the process, if we save $1 million, we may still be short. And I had one other thing, and I'm sorry, I can't think of it, but if you could, Mr. Chair, come back to me and I'll probably have it.
Can't wait, love to do that.
So with the group, we would add one member of each finance committee and one member at large from the community?
I would say that, I mean, only
That would
saying.
add four members total.
Yeah, and I do, and in part because the big nut to break it in this is Chatham. And I do think you want to get somebody, and I'm kind of paraphrasing somebody in the community who spoke to me today. You do want to get somebody from Chatham, from outside the select board there, that may have experience in this, that could explain it to the voters. Because ultimately, this has to go before the Chatham voters, and that's gonna be a very tough thing to do. So, we'll have our expertise, but I do think we could perhaps explain to the Chatham board why we think we're adding 2 members is important, especially some people from the community. And again, I will come back in that second question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a quip at the very top, I believe they have computers in Chatham, and they might have an inkling about what we're up to because of the agenda in the packet. Having said that, I do know, talking to the current chair and the past chair of the Chatham Select Board, that they were anticipating, they thought that one of the failures of the first approach was that we didn't have a specific ask in mind. So I do believe we should probably have, not drop slides, we should probably have an ask. Even if it's not an ask that's tenable, it's a starting point. Because that's what they're really looking to see launch conversation in Chatham. As a parochial thought, the capital stuff, I'm really all there. The discussion we had tonight with the cultural center building was the same discussion because there's an underlying responsibility to heat a building, to light a building, to maintain a building, custodians throughout the building, and as we hurtle towards 20% of the population being Chatham, they're not herded into 20% of the building. There are certain background costs that have to be borne regardless. There's a building and there's an expectation to run the building so that as kids go to it. I don't think it's unseemly to ask to share the cost of the capital improvements for the buildings, because without the building, they're not going any place either. And just to remind everybody, we built the high school that sits here as a purpose-driven building in its location, and fairly recently, given the overall inventory of stuff. It's demonstrable that something went wrong in the rebuild of what is now the middle school, what had been Chatham High School. There were what they call in contracts latent defects. I mean, the walls got covered up without flashing. I mean, there were problems with the building that we accepted. So for us to continue to operate on a 78, 77, 78% to 22 or 23% basis kind of ignores that fact. We had nothing to do with rebuilding that building. We inherited it. So I think it's fair moving forward. That's that's a hill that I'd be willing to die on, the capital part of this.
Some may let you.
Well, I was just going to comment that if Jay says, I'll just follow you, that watch everybody who's behind him and see what they're holding.
Mr. Kelleher.
The second question I had, Jay, check back to your old slides. I think I read something that you could live on Queen Anne Road, and if you were a Harwich resident, you'd be paying $2,000, you'd be paying $4,000 towards the education of a child. If you were a Chatham resident across the street, you're paying $2,000. On one of your slides, there's not that much of a differential. I know it's there, and I didn't have enough chance to look at it, but one of the slides did show that if you lived on Queen Anne Road in Harwich, you're paying twice as much what a Chatham resident right across the street is paying for the education of a child. And I think that really brings it home about the disparity, if not the unfairness of the whole thing.
Okay, I'll go back and look at, there's been 47 iterations of this thing.
From the
so
roundabout through the Chatham line. You're right, it's across the street.
Maybe it was on the 2 towns, 1 district slide.
You got to beat Noreen.
He did.
Uh-oh. I didn't see you, sorry.
He tripped her.
Did you see? I saw you tripped her.
I have a question, a 50,000-foot view. Doesn't the agreement require us to review the formulas periodically?
Every 5 years.
The whole
And,
agreement.
and have we ever?
They have, sure.
Once.
Yeah.
Once. Okay, so we're kind of behind, right?
Well, at this point, I think
And
we're in
that
year
schedule?
6 since its last review, 5 or 6, so it's
Yeah.
due. It was, I think that's what
Right.
prompted the conversation last year, is because we were at that 5-year mark, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. My other comment is about the formula. I know you don't want to get too deep into it, but I would encourage a broad definition of fixed costs that really serve both towns equally, including the building, including debt service, but also not just central office, but the custodians that maintain the building, and anything else that you have to have for any size school. I think that it's important to have that be in the same bucket with capital, potentially split 50-50, because those things benefit both towns pretty much equally.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I totally lost that thought. In the conversations that I did have with the two Chatham board chairs in sequence, they both brought up the idea, and it's factually correct, is, well, we have reviewed the formula, and we've made a change. We had the elementary school in Chatham owned by us. We have the elementary school in Harwich owned by you. So now you're shifting the scene on us again, is pretty much their attitude. And I can see how you could come to that conclusion. We have to come with some clarity into that particular area with it wasn't because we asked them to change the formula for their elementary school. It was precisely because their citizenry stormed the gates saying that we do not want you to bus all of our kids into a two-tiered system where most of them are going to go to Harwich first and then to Chatham second. They made the change because it was uneconomical to maintain a full level of service as an elementary school in Chatham, and their own citizens insisted that that was foundational to the original agreement. So while there was a change, it wasn't because we begged them to change that formula. What happened is the threat was we may have to close the school entirely or rearrange this so that at some point in your young kid's life, they're going to be taking a bus from Chatham to Harwich as a 6-year-old perhaps, and they did not want to go through that as a daily endeavor. So I think we all ought to know that that's what their thinking is we changed this once to give you a break, so you already got your break.
Noreen?
Thank you. Not only did Scott beat me to the mic, he took part of my comment.
We'll give you credit for it in the minutes.
We all work on first impressions because we're also busy. And I would also speak to the central office, particularly in relation to utility costs, insurance costs, and things like that. I feel that if you don't punch that topic up now at the beginning and try to introduce it or further amplify it later on, it would get brushed aside. And so I would suggest that have a more prominent role so that not just the Chatham Select Board, but the public that's watching that meeting and will be watching that meeting will be introduced to that concept and start to think about a simple thing like an electric bill and how much less it would be with less students in there. So that's one thing. The second thing is I'm known for being picayune with presentations. So as this is such an important issue, I'm going to be. There was a third or fourth slide there that had a great deal of information. It was the one with a long list.
One of these ones or this one here?
It was from the beginning, either
This one?
there. Okay. So sitting right there, I couldn't read it. So, I mean, I'm just suggesting for the sake of the public that would be watching this, because there's such good information on it, however you could possibly,
Get bigger?
something, because the people watching, and I can't read it from there, there's no way I would be able to read it on a television. So it's just a thought, and I would sincerely suggest you reconsider the maroon. The maroon that flows through this whole report. I mean, can you read, go back one.
The color?
We call it cranberry.
Oh, excuse me. Would you go back to the slide I was talking about? There. Can you read that bottom cranberry line and what's in
I
it?
see you said, the one in dark blue at the bottom there?
Well, cranberry, I was just told, yeah. At any rate, if anybody here can read that, I want your eyes.
Sources, Harwich, FY '27.
What?
Now
I have it in front of me,
No,
Noreen,
the
I'm
one-
cheating.
the one down
I'm
there.
reading it.
Now the other way.
Yeah, the summary
Thank
tab,
you.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Lose the cranberry, is what I meant.
Speaking of picky, that $8 million figure in the Chatham column, I think you've got the decimal off by 3.
Yeah, I think Bob emailed me about that over the weekend.
Charles Skuska, T-Berry Ave.
Evening.
I think the one argument of all the whys, the most important why is financial. And you've done a great job putting that together. That's the why, the only why that I can think of that's going to make people in Chatham pay attention. It was very clear, and it brought out again tonight, it was very clear by the administration that, to both boards and to the school committee, that this was the last year the school committee is going to be able to cut its budget and have a level services budget without an override in Harwich. Not a problem in Chatham, but in Harwich. I, as one resident taxpayer, do not want to see services cut in the Monomoy School District. And I say that from a fiscal point, and I pointed this out in some comments I made at town meeting this year. The millions of dollars that we are saving both towns because we're keeping kids inside of the district, because we've got a school program and level of services that other school districts do not have. Most haven't had for a heck of a long time. The district I worked in for 34 years had lost it before I moved to Harwich in 2015. I paid tuition for my 2 children growing up in my home city because my home city couldn't provide the education that I wanted them to have. So I paid my tax dollars, and then I paid tuition because we didn't have school choice in those days because I was fussy about that education. And I think the superintendent and the district has made very clear the kind of savings that we've realized as both communities because of what's been put together and what we currently have in the district that we don't want to cut back. And that is $2 million less than both DY and Nauset in money going out of our district to charter school tuitions. $1 million less this year in school choice money going out of the district than when the district was formed. That's a lot of cash. But if you start to have budgets that cannot maintain level programs of services, you're starting to work against yourself, and it's penny wise and pound foolish. The second thing, as I've said before, is the most pressing issue, it seems to me, to the two communities, is maintaining a workforce, a working-class young workforce. And no doubt, affordability and affordable housing is the key to that, but the other key is this quality school system where young workers want to keep their kids and have their kids go to school and not pay tuition like many of us. And there are other towns and communities on the Cape that are bleeding millions of dollars to Sturgis, Lighthouse, and school choice that we're not. So I want to make that point and bring that point clear. Second, the point about should there be a specific proposal on Thursday night. I agree that the main goal of Thursday night should be to start a process to study this issue, to put together a committee and a working group, and to have a very narrow deadline, a group of people who are going to work intensely and a rapid pace, because we already know that we can't maintain a level service budget into FY28 in the Monomoy district without an override. I mean, I can't say 100%. It's 99% we're sure that we can't do that already. So we're already at the point where when I was speaking to this board many years ago, warning that this day was coming, this day is upon us, and it happens in every regional district that sooner or later one town reaches the limit where we're at the levy limit, and it impacts every town in the district because that one town's budget becomes the driving force for the district budget. It's the level of affordability. I'm leery about putting a specific, I hear what Noreen is saying. I'm leery about putting a specific proposal, as specific as tonight, on the table. I think the concept is good, but a specific proposal, my concern is, I don't have the expertise that many of you have in negotiating. I've done some negotiating, but not at the level of some of you at the table. But what I do understand is that becomes a starting point. If you put something out now, that is going to be the starting point you're going to work down from. So I want to be sure that, first of all, that we're at a point where whatever is ever proposed, are we going to be able for a number of years to be able to fund our school district, maintain its services, and not require an override. So we want to be sure of that. But I don't want to start at a point that we're not going to end up at, because very few negotiations, in my experience, end up from the initial proposal put on the table. I've got a fair proposal that would be much more dramatic than the proposal tonight, and that is you propose to break out total budget by total population. Some school districts use that as a factor in their calculation. That's 67% Harwich, 33% Chatham. So 67-33 down the line. That would be a $2 million transfer from of assessment from Harwich to Chatham. But, you know, that would be twice the amount that's in the proposal tonight, and that would be, to me, both a fair, because you could argue that population is the fair way to do it, because every member of the community benefits from a good school district, both in property value and the importance of having a place to attract working-class families. And when we regionalize, we cut down the boundary. We're not two towns anymore for education. We're not Chatham school system, Harwich school system. Monomoy is the Chatham school system, and Monomoy is the Harwich school system. And why should people in one town pay twice as much in property taxes when their kids are getting the same services from the same people, at least from 5th grade on up? And how about the people, the majority of people, who do not have any children in the school, like myself? You know, I don't gain any more or less than the same person in Chatham paying their property taxes from the Monomoy School District. I benefit at the same level as a person who has nobody in school. So that's one way you can argue that just population, you know, let's just go by, and population doesn't shift and doesn't get argumentative like student enrollment shifts from year to year. And then people could start debating, well, why 75%? Why 76%? This is what it is now. Who came up with that number? It becomes arbitrary and a point for contention. Census changes every 10 years, and it's pretty solid, and you could make a case. Anyway, I just throw these kinds of things out as you folks are preparing and mulling in your mind for Thursday. And finally, I love the idea of working group in the committee, and I feel strongly that there should be a member of the finance committee from each town on that working group, and I feel very strongly that there should be a member of the general public from each town. Mr. Keller's remarks, I saw that work on the building committee. It was community people on the building committee who had some background in the trades who helped sell that vote to the public because the public saw them as advocates who knew what they were talking about, and they just didn't carry an official title. And I think there's a benefit to both to have, there's more brain power put onto the committee, but when you come to the point where you got to get the votes at town meeting, you're going to have advocacy from the community. It doesn't matter what all those elected officials on the proposed committee come up with. You still got to get the votes at town meeting. And I saw it with the building committee, with the middle school project. That was a big help in their advocacy and PR in selling that project. So I think there would be a benefit to have that kind of a person from each community to be added to the community. I know the bigger the committee, the harder it is to work, but I don't think it makes this particular committee excessive. So those are the thoughts that I've had since looking at the agenda packet over the last 24 hours and thinking what would I like to bring forward to the group to consider. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And to my colleagues, there's clearly nothing that precludes us from adding additional suggestions into the fold, right? It doesn't have to just be the one 7828 proposal, but again, that's up to you folks here tonight. If we want to see Jay tweak this thing at all, and again, I think, provided we can come out of this thing with an agreement to work together, sure, the current proposal may only decrease from that point, but perhaps, again, there are completely different thoughts that the working group brings together. So thoughts on that, Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things. Relative to what Charles just said, again, they are looking for something substantive. It's not just to show up and say, let's put together a subcommittee. Number two, Charles, where we're at right now would be a committee of 18 people because of the two different towns replicating the same numbers of people representing them. So there comes a point where it becomes really unwieldy to have conversations. But the final point, and I know I've had discussions with a bunch of town leaders, not on the select board in Chatham, they were wondering why this didn't get incorporated into the initial plan in the first place, but there is no cap. So whatever we can come up with right now is a percentage, unless it's tethered in something that's fairly stable, which clearly it wasn't in terms of school-age children, because that's spiked for Harwich as opposed to Chatham. They had anticipated when we set this thing up that perhaps somebody would interject with the thought that maybe we could have a cap at 75% so that it never got egregiously expensive for one town versus the other. We never expressed any desire to look at a cap. I think that's kind of an important issue because you don't know what you don't know when you don't know it. I mean, so ultimately, if we don't have a mechanism that prevents it from going into another spike, we could be having this conversation again in 4 or 5 years. But I get back to the same thought that we've been discussing, though, and Charles is right, though. The conversation coming out of the school committee meeting this year relative to agreeing to a final budget had everything to do with excess and deficiency, and they had made they actually wanted to end it this year. Which would have been a horrible burden on us, but I think we were talking about at least $500,000 that was that wound up coming our way at the end to close the gap to be able to put.
They used less E&D than they had in the past.
Yeah, they used less, but they were talking about zero.
Substantially less, yeah.
And if
They
they go,
closed the gap with E&D.
if they go to zero, that's the mechanism that's been used in the last several years to close the gap that avoided an override in this town. If they don't do that, and I don't see how, with the trajectory of these numbers, that can maintain itself for another year or two without an override.
Yeah, I would, just two points. If we add 2 members from each community, I'm coming up with 11 members. I don't find that unwieldy at all. Second thing is, and I do think Mike McMillan may have this, there's a school system on the North Shore of Manchester, Essex, which incorporates into their formula town population, student population, equalized value. You know, and I know it's kind of late in the game, but if McMillan has something like that, there's something that would encapsulate everything we're talking about. You bring in wealth, you bring in total population, you bring in student population, and they can see in print what other towns have done to do this, and there are a lot of similarities. Essex, it's almost reversed. Essex is a small, poorer community, and Manchester is the larger, richer community, almost kind of, if you transpose it. But that could be, you know, I know you don't have a lot of time, Jay, but I think McMillan or Carpenter, Dr. Carpenter, may have those things available. And that may be a good point, and I'll leave it up to the other board members what they think, but you wouldn't have to recreate it from the start. I think they have it, so.
Yeah, and it may be like that's the first thing that the working group wants to look at too, you know?
That's true.
Yeah, because I feel pretty strongly that like what Pete started off with is the point of putting something in here for a proposal isn't to focus on it at the meeting, you know, tonight or Thursday night, because all we're saying is this is an idea we have, but what we really want to do is put this group of people together and do a think tank on how how to create something that works, you know, and I think that needs to be the basis of a big, solid piece of it.
Anything else on this end? Nothing? So, at this point, we'll ask Jay to just go through it again and.
Make some tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add
Like
the,
50/50.
Right.
yeah, no, the 50/50 will definitely be there.
And otherwise, Jay will be the individual that presents it, and I'll be happy to, you know, support you the best you can, but, the best I can, but, we'll present it to them, and I know they also have a presentation for us, so, we'll be interested to see their presentation, and then we move forward, and again, hopefully in the end, we come out of this together with an agreement to, form a committee and work on the formula.
Mr. Chair? This isn't long, but I just don't want anybody to lose sight of the fact that every 5 years they've got to review the plan. So this isn't a question of, I choose not to have a discussion with you about anything. It's a question of what we're going to discuss and when we're going to get some sort of agreement, because we have to look at the plan every 5 years.
Well, and thanks for bringing that up, because one of my notes is, I got two notes that I'll quickly go over. One is, the difference between this meeting and last year's meeting is that in between that time, we had requested through the school board, who has the authority and ability to open the agreement for discussion, has voted to do so. So technically, the agreement is open, right? So we have the ability to have these conversations with an open agreement based on their vote. And the only other thing I'll state is, and I think it's to Mr. Gruska's point, that although FY '28 may be challenging, this vote wouldn't happen till town meeting in '28, so it wouldn't actually help us in FY '28. If we can come to an agreement and present it to both towns, and both towns support it, it would be for FY '29 in reality. So, anyway, it has to happen, so it's better than happening in 32. You know, it might as well happen in FY '29. So anyway, I just wanted to bring those points forward. Otherwise, again, Jay will work on just some tweaks on this, and we'll plan on attending the joint meeting with the Chatham Select Board in Chatham, and at 5:30 PM.
At the auxiliary town
At
hall.
the annex. All right, excellent. Appreciate you putting that together, Jay. Attached also to tonight's agenda is this is, I told you, looking at kind of reverse engineering this. So this is kind of the template that Jay and I talked about utilizing to conduct the annual performance evaluation for Jay and, as the town administrator. Guess nobody gives a damn, Jay. And then also, as you see, the ability for us to set goals. And so I wanted to start at this point so that we could at least agree on the template that we would use, and then we have a couple different paths to go from here. If we agree on this, then we could ask you folks to submit us, a goal or two for consideration, or you could have me work directly with Jay to create some possible goals to bring back to you folks for discussion. So I leave it to the pleasure of the board, but again, I'll start with the document itself, the tool that we would utilize. Does anybody have any concerns with it? Any thoughts about it? Any comments? Anything? Anyone? Bueller?
Just one comment. We had talked about having like a strategy meeting at some point in time.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be kind of the genesis of coming up with what we want the town administrator to, some of his goals?
Yes and no, I would say. So, sure, it will be part of it, but the time that these strategic sessions occur, probably we're too far down the path, right? We should have goals assigned for fiscal year. And so we're knocking on the door of FY '27 in a couple of weeks. So I think, thinking long-term, once we have these strategic sessions and get some plans in place, we could absolutely utilize that for future goal setting and evaluation tools. But I think right now, we just need to come up with something that, I don't think we'll be far off of that, to be quite honest with you. In fact, part of it's gonna be, in my suggestion would be that one of his goals is to facilitate such a meeting, right? So we make sure that it happens. And so those are the types of things, in my opinion, we could put into this document to make sure we get that ball rolling, and then once it's rolling, incorporate it into future evaluations. But that's just my thoughts.
Okay.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was kind of the mind that it would be good if you gave us something to start with, because what we've always gotten bogged down in the very beginning is how minute is the goal going to be? My experience in the federal government was broad goals, like 90% of the time you issue contracts timely, something that's universal, that comes up with a numeric way of being able to decide, okay, you hit the goal, you exceeded the goal, you weren't. But in the past, I've seen this board stall with like 20 goals and objectives, and all I can say is when everything's as important as everything else, then nothing's important, because you can't establish any priorities that way.
Yeah, which again is why I wanted to start with.
No, this looks great, actually.
Right? And so now we can backfill into the goal piece. So, and again, I'd be happy to work with Jay to bring some back, but I wanted the board's thought and consensus. So, Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to see you and Jay sit down and come up with some goals and objectives that the two of you would come up with, and then bring it back to the board. And if there's anything else that we would add to that, I think that would be a good start. I think, for myself, if I could come up with almost the same goals and objectives as maybe someone else would, and it doesn't give us, how do I want to put this? It doesn't give us a variety.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for putting this together. I think this is a great template. I like how concise and short it is. The inside, so leadership and ethics and professional development, strategic vision. The language that populates the performance criteria, is that set in stone, or is that up for discussion as well?
Absolutely open for discussion.
Yeah. I think 95% of it is great. How would you want feedback on that? Just email to you and admin?
Yeah, that'd be
kind of
great.
thing?
That'd be
Okay.
great.
And then as far as goals, I think a hybrid of you and Jay working it out, as Member Doucette said. I have two that I would like consideration to be given. I'll forward those over,
Yeah.
and you do what you want with them.
Yeah. And again, it's all gonna come back to this board to have the ultimate decision.
Correct.
So,
So I
yeah.
think we're off to a great start, and it's very focused.
Excellent.
Thanks for doing the work.
Thank you.
Jay did the work, but, we good?
Thanks, Jim, for doing the work.
Did it on Thursday.
We all know who's behind it.
Well, he clearly didn't have time to do the other presentation. All right, contracts,
I
Jay.
have a comment on that.
Oh, please, yeah, the mic is yours.
You did 23% of it.
Mr. Chair, I move,
23%. Well, the numbers did come in from the region.
Mr. McMillan at 3:45.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the memorandum of agreement with the Town of Orleans Council on Aging Support Day Rock Harbor Respite Program, and vote to authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I vote that we approve authorizing the Select Board Chair and the Town Administrator to sign the contract amendment for the Harwich's Chapter 90 contract.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just say that the staff's probably tired of this sitting around. I just, after reading it, I felt that it should come back to you. It's really just blessing that Jay has the authority to sign on behalf of the town, but at the same time, I wanted the board's approval before I signed off. So with that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve a contract with J.R. Vinagro to provide construction and demolition disposal rates at the rates of A, fiscal year 2027, $123.50 per ton plus a $6 per load environmental fee. And B, for fiscal year 28, $127 per ton plus a $6 per load environmental fee. And for 2029, $131 per ton plus, you guessed it, a $6 per load environmental fee.
Second.
Motion and a second. Jay?
Yeah, so this is a contract to dispose of our C and D starting July 1st. Link went out to bid, looking at where we had been sending it, which was Waste Solutions, NER. He was really unhappy with the proposal he received from them. Got much more favorable pricing by going to this firm in Rhode Island. More favorable pricing without the fuel and environmental surcharges at the level that we had seen from New England Waste Solutions. So ultimately, the rate is less. We've sent a number of trucks down there to do test runs to make sure that it worked well and that our trucks were able to get in. We had no issues, glowing reviews from the other municipalities that took advantage of Vinegro here, and it's a 3-year contract. This is only for C&D, and I looked at what you had asked me earlier, Mark. There's no cap, or there's no total amount per year. It's 100% ton-based, and we do about 8,000 to 9,000 tons a year.
So if I,
Please.
Chair, so the 1,174,000 is basically a do not exceed?
Do not exceed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the question is, do the revenues offset the expenses for this? I believe that the people who dump there pay the money for it.
For C&D, yeah, I think we lose money on MSW, but not on C&D.
Okay, and this is C and D, okay.
Yeah,
Because I know that's
MSW
been a
is
point in the
curbside,
past, but,
you
okay.
know, your household trash.
Yeah, I understand,
Yeah,
that's
that's somewhat
to be given.
subsidized.
But C and D, we get revenues enough to offset the cost for this?
That's what I've been led to believe by Link, yes.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We're going to jump into the Select Board member report. Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Mark?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Jeff?
Condolences to the Penn family. Felicia Penn, Hyannis, left a huge footprint with her civic generosity. She was a member of the Hyannis Council, Puritan Clothing. Just a great family and a great person. She passed away last week. So my condolences, and I hope the board would also join me in that.
Agreed, thank you. Nothing from me. To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.